Oh, that's not.
Jessica, we're all set right there.
Okay. I have like. agendas. Tammy, is my agenda that's out the top? Okay. Okay. Okay, we will get our work session started. It's 4:03. And Tammy, know all board members are present. We have Dr. Huff and Dr. Yucca and Anna Logan with us tonight. Okay, we'll do the flags for me. Everyone this way, I'm this way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So again, Tammy, we have all 5 board members present. So, I'd like to add, we don't have on here, but any additions, revisions, deletions for our agenda. I'd like to start with on our first reading of our policies. Instead of taking any actions tonight, they will just be read in discussion and brought back to our May board meeting. At our May 13th meeting. I have the motion. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Elpers, we'll move on to you for Grizzly Mountain Home Link overview.
All right, well, it's great to see all of you. And I'm Johnny Olkers. I'm the principal at Grizzly Mountain. And I have a presentation that I've worked on to present to you about Grizzly Mountain. So we started Grizzly the fall of 2020, right in the beginning of COVID. And before that, I was a science teacher at Cook County High School. And so let me see if this clicker works. There we go. Okay, and so it's got a really interesting, unique name. It actually started as the Homeschool Partner Program for a few months. And then we came up with a better name, so we named it after a mountain nearby. And then we borrowed the name HomeLink from homeschool programs in Washington. So it's probably the only HomeLink in Oregon, but it's a way to partner with parents who want to do school at home. And so it was created during COVID to provide families with an additional option. We had a lot of families the summer of 2020 after experiencing, I don't remember what they called that exactly when kids were out of school in the spring of 2020, who did not enjoy that. And they were looking at just homeschooling their kids themselves in 2020 or joining some of the many charter schools that are out there. And so we formed this group, and I remember I got hired, and Dr. Hoff told me, okay, if we get 16 students, I think we have a solid program for you. And we had 260 kids, overnight. And so we had a single classroom at Barnes that first year, but it quickly grew, and we had a small staff, and so we were on our way. And so families, it's turned into this wonderful program where families choose from a menu of curriculum options, and teachers create what's called a PEP plan, so a personalized education plan that monitors student learning. And I'll talk more about that later. And basically my kids, one of the reasons I was chosen to lead this thing was my kids were enrolled with a charter school at the time that was running this sort of thing. And my wife was homeschooling our kids back then. And so I kind of had an idea of how it worked and an interest in forming something that would work for the district. So today we have 9.5 certified staff members in Grizzly Mountain. We have 4 classified staff and me, the administrator. And today we have 95 students, K through 5. And then we have 93 students in the middle school program and 55 students in the high school program. That first year, Grizzly Mountain was just K through 8. And so then it was so popular, parents who had 8th graders were asking us to add 9th grade the next year. And so we did. And 9th grade has become 10th grade, 10th grade has become 11th grade. And so next year we'll have our first group of seniors, although we do have 1 senior this year. So we've sort of allowed in unique situations, a senior here. I think we had 1 senior last year as well.
Johnny, can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, Dr. Skinner is joining us virtually. I wonder
Oh.
if Eric might promote her to panelist.
Oh, okay. Thanks, fun.
She texted, that's
Okay.
where that came from.
Sorry.
Sorry, Johnny, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt your-
that's okay.
Well, I did, but.
Yes. Should we wait until?
I'll let you know when she's rejoined as a. You're all set.
Okay, so we have a total, when you add those 3 up, of 243 students right now. Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the ways the program has changed over the years. And one of the things to notice in my numbers right here is that the largest interest is in the middle school. So you'll notice at the elementary level, we have 15 kids per grade, but at the middle school level, we have 31 kids per grade. And so when we first started Grizzly, that first year during COVID, it was by far the most popular was in the elementary years. And since COVID has ended, we've really seen it become most popular in the middle school age group. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I just want you to notice what a big difference there is in our enrollment at the middle school level. And I think our high school, our high school enrollment it does again diminish as kids enter high school. And I have a little chart I made that I think will explain that. The first year, like I said, we were at Barnes Butte and we were in 1 room. And the second year we moved over to the old Pioneer Alternative High School after the Pioneer campus was finished. So that's me and Christy, our secretary. And we're so excited that we had a new location. We even bought a sign at Costco and hung it up. And so we now have 6 classrooms and 2 other classrooms that are shared with a number of staff and are multi-purpose. We have in 1 room, nutrition services is using it as an office space as well. And we have 1 staff member in that room. And then we have another room that's shared between special education and it's basically a bunch of special education staff members all in 1 room. There's also a gym at Steens Pillar that we use a few times a week, and the cafeteria that we share with Steens Pillar as well. And then we have an office on that side of the building. It's super useful. So I was a biology teacher, so like biochemical diagrams is sort of my niche, so like the Krebs cycle, if you guys can think back to biology. So the way things work at Grizzly, at the elementary level, I'm gonna use the H and GMH can kind of be 2 things. So originally it was Grizzly Mountain Homelink, but the reason we've become so popular at the middle school level is actually because of our hybrid program. And so there's really a second thing that's sort of forming at Grizzly that's called hybrid school. And that's sort of the newest, most innovative thing that we're doing. That's causing a lot of kids to come in and causing us to remain popular, especially at the middle school level. So you'll notice on this little graph or this little chart, I've got K through 12 at the bottom. And the size of the arrows for me on this chart sort of represents the number of students. And so K through 5, parents want to educate their children at home. And so K-5, all of our students are kids whose parents are like, I want to homeschool my student. But Grizzly, through the use of these things we call PEP plans, we have teachers, licensed teachers, who are really the teacher of record for this student, and they're supervising the educational plan for these elementary students. But as students, and I can tell you this from my own personal life, as your kids age, the content becomes more complex, and the feedback from the child to the parent becomes less appealing. And so mom is more likely to be excited for the student to spend more time in, you know, a brick and mortar school. And so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we have those traditional homeschool students are now enrolled in online classes and are getting their instruction more directly from the teacher in person. Simultaneously, you'll notice I have an arrow at the top that says middle school influx. There's also in our Crook County School District just a number of kids for various reasons. I'd say that the number one reason I hear is anxiety. There's a number of kids joining us from the middle school, and it's, you know, it's the social part of middle school that they're for some reason not enjoying middle school, or they're just looking for something different. And so we get a big influx of kids joining us in the middle school years, and so that arrow gets bigger. So instead of 15 kids per grade level, we're becoming 30 kids per grade level at the middle school years. And so you see it in my big arrow in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade years that we have a mixture of homelink and hybrid kids. And if anything, our homelink numbers are going down and our hybrid numbers are going up in the middle school years. And then when we get to the 9th, 10th grade year, things are really starting to sort of go in a number of options. We have kids, like I had this great student, and he's been with us since 6th grade. He joined us, and mom, before that, mom was, you know, traditional homeschooling. He was enrolled with the ESD, not even one of our students. And I just met mom on the soccer field, and she was looking for something new because she'd homeschooled him since kindergarten. Met her on the soccer field, told her about our program. He joined our program. They just have loved our program for 3 years. He's got straight A's in our hybrid program. Next year, he's going to CCHS as a 9th grader. And, you know, that's the arrow on the bottom. Some of the kids, second arrow up, COCC, some of the kids will, after 9th grade, they'll start enrolling in COCC classes. They're still a member of Grizzly Mountain, but they can take COCC classes and get high school credit through Grizzly Mountain and get college credits at the same time. So it's a dual credit option. There are some kids who just stay with us and they just remain as a hybrid student through high school, and they're going to just graduate through Grizzly Mountain. We have some who decide, yeah, I'm going to stay on Grizzly Mountain, but I just want to be full-time online. They don't want to come into the hybrid program anymore. And then we have some who I think are going to be ending up at Pioneer. I think we've maybe transferred one to Pioneer this year, you know, and I have a couple more who I think next year it's going to be Pioneer. And so there's just a number of directions they end up going for the high school years. And so the high school numbers tend to shrink back down, and the middle school years tend to be the biggest. And so it's a complicated situation at Grizzly Mountain. And Dr. Hoff told me, you know, school board's kind of like, what is Grizzly Mountain? I was like, yeah, well, it's a strange thing. It's not a simple brick and mortar school. We do a lot of things there, and especially from middle school to high school, kids have a number of paths they can follow. And this, I probably should have put this earlier, but you can see the data here. 2020, a lot of elementary school kids. It's hard to see the numbers there, but those last couple pillars are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They were the smallest in 2020. Now they're our biggest columns in 2024. So some of the strengths of Grizzly: we give families alternative options. We really leverage parent urgency. Parents are more involved in their kids' education. We've got hybrid options, so kids can come in a couple times a week instead of 5 days a week. There's a lot of choice for parents. They can, even in the elementary level, we have a menu of curriculum options for them to choose from. And parents, there's an $1,100 allotment per student, then they can use the money to pay for curriculum. And that's modeled after other programs throughout the state. And it provides increased flexibility for their schedule. So we have kids sometimes who transfer to us because they have medical things going on. And then as soon as that medical thing clears up, they're gonna go back to brick and mortar school. We have one family that joined us this year and they're big into rodeo and they go down to Arizona in the winter and they rodeo and their kids are learning online and it's been really exciting and fun for them to be able to do that. We have one family who harvests maple syrup in Canada. I don't know if you guys know this family, but every year they go and they get maple syrup in northeastern Canada and their kids join us in the winter and they have great students, you know? But that's just a part of their lifestyle. And so we've been a good option for them. But there are also some real challenges that have come with exploring this new way of doing school. Sometimes parents struggle to understand the immensity of what they're taking on in having their kids home more. And so we struggle sometimes, and I struggle sometimes to realize in my first meeting with a parent whether this is going to be a good fit or not. And, you know, whether the expectations are clear, whether the framework that we've set up is enough. And, you know, this has been a new experience for me as well. When we first started, you know, it felt like we kind of opened up almost too many options, and it can be a little bit overwhelming for parents and for us to manage how to monitor so many different choices. We've scaled back a little bit since that first year. How to keep, I mean, some families are just, you know, amazing and totally on it. And when a family is struggling, how to have a level of accountability, and how to do that gracefully can be difficult. One major struggle at the elementary level, if kids are behind in reading and math, there's interventions, daily interventions with IAs. We have a lot of trouble getting families with struggling students to engage in interventions. It's hard. We get a lot of feedback from parents. No, I know the test showed, you know, that they're behind, but really I know that they're where they need to be, you know, and it's a little more of a battle. Whereas if you're in a brick and mortar school, there's not even a lot of talking and, you know, a lot of permission with the parents, like, oh, we're just going to be in a reading group now, you know, and it's just not as much of a struggle to get kids in interventions in brick and mortar as it is for mom to get the kid on a Zoom 5 days a week or to come in the building. So that can be a little concerning. Attendance is so easy as a teacher. Is a kid here? He's here. It's done. And attendance through online schools is a meaningful two-way interaction between the teacher and the student. It is really hard to get kids to do their part of a meaningful two-way interaction daily. And so keeping kids doing their attendance every day is much, much harder than just noticing that they showed up in class that day. I think I'm right in saying the middle school and the high school tend to see enrollment peak at the beginning and kind of slowly go down over the year, and not significantly, but we actually start at our lowest and just keep rising as the year goes on. And so just a different challenge. Space constraints, you know, we have 6 classrooms and something we'd like to complain about. Increased behavior and counseling needs. As we continue to get more and more middle school kids, we are continuing to see more and more behavior issues arise.
I have a question on that. On your list of staff, you didn't have a counselor.
Yeah, I missed that. We do have Mrs. Schmitz as we have a sliver of her time, and we just gave her an office right next to our office. So she is our counselor, and I should have included that.
Okay.
And so next steps yeah.
So how much, so you have 250 students?
Yep.
And does Ms. Schmitz see, like, how many of them does she see? And when you transfer kids in, do they have, like, do you see a lot of kids transferring in with like behavior issues or learning issues? Do they have times like they have to finish out the semester, or do they just come in like randomly at all times of the year?
Good question. So Kids, we have not, we have in the past tried to stagger, like you can only transfer, like with the high school kids, we actually have kind of been a little more firm about it. They have to transfer at this trimesters, and that's primarily for credit purposes. With the middle school students, I think winter term, we piloted only transferring at the midterm. But we saw kids starting to go to RPA, and when we started losing kids out of the district, Mr. Stefanik and I decided, you know, let's go case by case on this. Because we don't want to lose kids out of the district. We value our Kirk County families. And it's not ideal to transfer in the middle of a trimester, but we want to, you know, I just personally, like, I care about the people that live in this community, and I don't want to not serve them. And so, yeah, that's something we've kind of gone back and forth on. But so right now, we're actually full, like we have a maximum. And so especially at the end of the school year, you know, if it was the beginning of the school year and we were full, I'd go talk to the DO and look for another staff member because we want to be able to serve. But, you know, with 6 weeks left in the year, we're expecting families to kind of remain at the middle school. But throughout the year, we have just let kids transfer as needed based on their situations. And when kids come in, if they have counseling needs, Mrs. Schmitz has been awesome to come over and help as needed. She has a few students right now that she's seeing. But I'll tell you, one of the really cool things about Grizzly and these kids that come over from the middle school that have some anxiety is a lot of that when kids only come 2 days a week, a lot of that stuff kind of seems to dissipate. And so, you know, there are pros and cons to school in person 5 days a week. But when kids are only in person 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you should come see our lunchroom. You know, everybody's just chilling and happy. We like as much as I put there are increasing behavior things. I've had more referrals this month than I think I've had all year. So like it's been really smooth this year in general. And so when kids are only together 2 days a week, they tend to be like much more well behaved, and they're really kind of appreciative of the fact that they're around their peers. And so a lot of the kids who have anxiety, it tends to dissipate when they don't get to be around each other as much. So it hasn't been a huge need for a lot of counseling. But I think if we continue to see more influx of middle school kids, we will continue to need an increase in FTE of counseling. So.
Do you see kids transferring in from Pioneer or?
Yeah, we've had a number of transfers from Pioneer as well. Because Pioneer is full-time in person, and so we provide that hybrid option where they have a little more time to be at home.
For the older kids, do you share any resources with Pioneer, like counseling services or anything like that?
You know, I don't think we've had a single high school kid this year who needed counseling services. But it's not something where I couldn't call and ask. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a few ideas for solving some of these problems. The space issue, we want to form a committee to review and propose some options for next year. Ways that we might just use our space more effectively. For the 25-26 school year, we want to look at our model and see if, you know, a little bit slower process here, but look at what we're doing and see if there are changes that should be made. And so form a committee to adjust, you know, just kind of look at what we've been doing and see if there are adjustments that we should make. There are some areas of communication that we need to work on around specifically the allotment that we hit some rapids on this year that we need to do a better job on next year. And part of the communication with the allotment comes through the PEP. And so we also need to make sure that's coming through clear to the parents And that's what I got for you. But I'd love to answer any questions you guys have. That was a ton of information, so.
So John, I'm trying to picture your classroom setups with. I mean, basically your K through 11
Yeah,
with 9 teachers, but 6 classrooms.
yeah, okay,
So how does
great
that
question.
work?
So I
I'm
didn't
like
put,
trying, in my mind, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
trying to picture like you have.
let me, I,
Three
you know,
in a room,
I could have
or-
put a slide of
That's okay.
the schedule, right?
Okay,
So if you're an elementary student, then Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you are learning at home. In curriculum that is primarily taught to you by your parent, and we call the parent the learning coach. And the curriculum that the parent is working through is monitored by the teacher, and the teacher connects with the learning coach every month and meets and is getting evidence of work submitted back to the teacher from the learning coach. And they're kind of getting a sense of like how it's going in those meetings. And they're collecting evidence of the work that's being completed. Then we're also benchmark testing the students 3 times a year to get a sense of their math and reading abilities and see how they're, increasing. And then Wednesdays are the in-person day. And so the kids come on Wednesdays and they get to have sort of their social school day on Wednesdays. That's K through 5. So staff members who are elementary teachers on Wednesdays get to see students. Tuesdays and Thursdays, middle and high school students show up. And their curriculum is primarily online. And so online learning happens at home for middle and high school students Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they come in and they do regular class work. And so that's why we call it hybrid. And so like if I'm a biology teacher, we're going to do a lab. We're going to look under the microscope at something on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're going to be doing your online curriculum and learning at home that way. Now, for middle and high school, we also have study hall Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we have a number of middle school kids in particular who come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 3, and they're working in study hall. And then they also come in Tuesday, Thursday. So it's basically 5 days a week now for a group of kids that their parents just want them with us. But most middle school students are just showing up Tuesday, Thursday, and then doing the rest at home.
so are your middle and high schoolers on the same curriculums, or how do you do a lab with middle school and high school? Are they like?
There, so we have a schedule, a 5-period schedule. And so we pretty much have our 6th graders in one class, 7th graders in another class, 8th graders in another class. And then our 9th and 10th graders take a class at the same time. So like if we're talking about science, which is my background, 9th and 10th graders are taking biology this year. Next year, they'll take physical science. And so it's just flip-flopping each year. And then 11th and 12th graders this year are taking environmental science. And next year we might offer like chemistry. And so it'll flip-flop each year. And so it works for a 5-period day that way.
And do our high schoolers get their credits through Cook County online option or through Grizzly Mountain?
So
Through our credits.
yeah, so this year in Synergy is the software we use for credits. This year, CCOO, Cook County Online Option, is the school that Grizzly Mountain is under. When we first started that 9th grade program that I told you guys about, it was called our 9th grade cohort, and it was in CCOO. There have been some changes in the laws this year in particular, and so we're just officially forming like a Grizzly Mountain High School next year. So it'll have its own little section in Synergy, and I think it'll have its own school ID next year. Linda Hutchins is the expert on that, but Joel Hoff knows everything too, so we could just ask him. Yeah.
Johnny, just to follow up on a previous question.
Yeah.
The chair. Are 100% of the learning coaches parents, or do you have other?
Occasionally a grandparent. In one case, I think we have a stepdad who has legal rights. But yeah, just about always it's a parent, yeah.
Johnny, there was a question from Dr. Skinner. This goes back to the counselor topic. When we get to 300 students, will GMH need one FTE counselor, like a full FTE? That was the question.
That's a great question. It's above my pay grade, or it's above my knowledge. I don't.
I believe, and budgets are still, I think our next budget meeting is Monday. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
What day is it? Where?
Well, Monday, but tomorrow is it, Joel?
Scott actually corrected me, your name tag was upside down. So I believe there's an expanded, Patty Schmitz is currently 0.6, and I believe Anna's budgeted to increase that position to have more shared time, so it should be able to serve more kids in that current budgeted, and like. same
Yes,
thing.
that's correct.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Do we have the ability to share a counselor, like workloads with like maybe Pioneer or
That's something.
increase Patty's time, Ms. Schmidt's time? Is
So yeah,
that
that's
something that
the
we-
increased time, I believe, is in the proposed budget. But then I think we'd also, I think at the end of the day, the outcome we're going for is that any student that needs mental health services gets it, right? So however, we need to adjust to make that happen, whether that's in the proposed budget, adding time to the current counseling position, or if some other counselor has capacity. I think at the end of the day, we just need to make sure our students' needs are met. So we'll figure out how to do that best.
So how does that work for their, I guess either of you, for busing for Grizzly Mountain?
Oh, that's a great
Or
question.
transportation?
These are the fun problems I've loved solving. So
Okay.
we, with the middle school, being in such demand, we worked with, transportation to get a bus to, well, after the kids get dropped off at the middle school, or maybe it's after the high school, the buses just come by Grizzly Mountain on their way to, the bus barn, and they drop the kids off on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we have transportation, in the morning, and then before the buses go to the middle school, they come to Grizzly Mountain, or they have one bus come to Grizzly Mountain. It picks up all the kids that need to ride the bus home, and it takes them over to the middle school, drops them off, and then they get on the buses that they need to get on to go home. So we have transportation for the kids.
What about high school and elementary?
High school, same for high school. Elementary, we do not have transportation, which has not been something I've heard a single complaint about, but that doesn't mean there isn't someone out there who wants it.
Can I ask you about money? And it might be a better question to ask Kenna, but overall, over the life of this program, you know, we brought in extra ADM in order to support it. Does it generally cost money, make money, break even? Where is this financially?
I want to see what Johnny knows.
I have no idea.
It generally breaks even or does a little bit better than that.
What I thought. And the other question I would have is, as I have asked about this program and described it to other people at statewide regional meetings, I can never find anybody who's heard anything of it. They're all fascinated by it and they can't reinvent it. Are you aware of any other models like this in the state of Oregon, or are we it?
Well, there's lots of charter schools just
Right.
like it. I'm not
Just like
aware, what?
Just like it?
Yeah, I mean, like Baker Web Academy, Silvers River Charter School.
They don't have a hybrid.
They don't have a hybrid.
Hybrid, let me think about that. Baker has, little, like, they rent spaces and kids can come in for tutoring. Yeah, they're little satellite locations. There's one in Bend called Oregon Family School, and they're fairly popular. And they actually use a church as their spot, and they go in once a week and go in. I'd say they're all over the place, but they're all charter schools. It's very unusual that a school district has one. I think there was one on the coast mountain range that, our teacher in, Paulina, what's her name? Courtney Papanoff. She knows someone who has a small one going on the coast before COVID, because she gave me her friend's name and I called her a few times when we first started and got some ideas. But yeah, it's like unheard of that a school district does it. It's just like all the school districts have said, leave it for the charter schools. I don't want to get into it. So,
It's funny because it's been saga with GMH for the last 4 years. Kind of came up through COVID and the distance learning and families that didn't want to do the masks, didn't want to do the vaccines, and it was a great alternative. But each year, like anything innovative, it's messy. And we're just like each year we're trying to troubleshoot and problem solve different aspects of it. And I think it's taken on a new life as you chatted about at the middle school where
Mhm.
students that are, dealing with either behavior issues or social anxiety or just are sick of wanting an alternative to middle school because middle school is a tough time in life.
Mhm.
It really is our only alternative at this point. So the demographics have really shifted from, hey, these are your traditional homeschool families that want to partner with a school district. And I think to your question, Scott, the really cool thing that we have through offering this is we can offer these families in our community a link into our schools where if you want to still be involved in band or athletics or take a welding class or get help with algebra because the parent's tired of, the math's getting too difficult, it does provide this really unique opportunity. But as your questions kind of illustrate, it's a messy, it's, whenever you're doing something different, there's just lots of issues to figure out. So every year we're having to scratch our head on transportation hurdles or, curriculum allotment hurdles and figuring that all out. So we're, GMH has just kind of had this interesting journey.
Yeah.
But it's a great alternative for a lot of families.
Mhm.
And if we were to close it down tomorrow,
Mhm.
what would happen to those families? Would they all
I think-
go back to CCHS? 100% of them would go to Baker? I don't know.
I think we would see a lot of the elementary families in that really funny picture, a lot of the elementary families would probably join Baker Webb Academy, Sylvia's River Charter School, Oregon Family School in Bend. They'd find a different charter school. I think our middle school families, a lot of them would join RPA. Or stay Kirk County Middle School. And I think a lot of our high school families would either join the high school or join Baker Webb Academy. I think that's what would happen. I would guess about a 50% loss of those students.
And the
Just
rest would
that's
stay at
just a
ADM.
guess, yeah. Mhm.
It sounds like maybe it's gone from a homeschooling, original homeschooling school to more like of an alternative setting.
Yeah, I would say it's becoming an alternative middle school
That's what it
more than
sounds
anything,
like.
yeah.
And so, do you have a register who keeps track of like transcripts?
Yeah, that's one of our 4 classified staff, Julie DeRoost. Yep. She's great.
Yeah, it sounds like just a lot of behavior issues, maybe are transferring in and that's where the counseling thing.
Yeah,
Wonder like.
it's starting to feel that way a little bit.
I think this is really a lot more complicated than what I think my original thought of Grizzly Mountain was just like, oh, it's just 2 days a week, some homeschool families come in and
Yeah,
that's great, but I can see by looking at everything that it's very, very complicated and complex.
yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Do you have a wait list of students?
Yeah, we have about 7 middle schoolers on a wait list right now. But what always happens on the turnover to next year is we have probably 43 8th graders. And about half, I've already polled them and gotten the ones who want to go to CCHS. I've already gotten them on a list to Linda Hutchins, and they're already going to be rolled into CCHS next year, whether or not their parents do their online enrollment. So we'll have about 21 that are 9th graders with GMH next year. And so we'll lose 20, whatever, 22 kids to the CCHS next year. And then we'll have a small number of 6th graders at the beginning of the year. And then we'll gain 10 or 12 over the course of the year. And then a few 5, 7 of our 6th graders now will probably try to go back to CCMS. And then half of them will come back to us again. And so there's sort of this turnover. And so we're at 243 right now. We'll probably be at 210 at the beginning of the year next year. So anybody who wants to come in at the beginning of the year is able to join us.
Why is there a wait list?
Because
The
he's
class
capped at
sizes?
space. Yeah, that's what he's.
Well, we cap our teachers at 30. So every middle school teacher has got a full load. We've even got a couple extras right now. Yeah,
Do you guys have behavior plans in place?
we have a couple of kids on behavior plans right now. If,
And what about your SPED program?
yeah, we have a
and the
great,
Levels of SPED and.
we have a great sped teacher. And, I'm sorry, what was your
how
question?
The different levels, of SPED, I'm blanking on the,
Oh, ILC intensive.
yeah, but
ER
This is all new to us, so we're
Yeah.
all trying to catch
Yeah.
on.
Presentation coming in May.
I'm assuming you don't have like any like, what levels of kids do you have, and what kind of services do you offer?
We have a couple elementary students who, if the parents have been very understanding. We don't have a lot of behavior support at the elementary school level. And usually if a kid comes to us from an elementary school because of behavior and their parents didn't like the alternative choices they were given at, whatever school, the parents basically saying, hey, I want to deal with the behaviors at home. And we've had a couple where we try to slowly step them back into in-person stuff with our Wednesdays. And that's gone pretty well. I can think of one student in particular that she just comes in for SPED services. And we have a great SPED teacher, and we have a great classified staff member who is a SPED assistant. And so they do a great job with this one student. But we don't have any super structured behavior program or anything. There haven't been enough students to justify something like that.
You have 243.
There aren't enough just behavior
Yeah,
students.
yeah,
Yeah.
the total is 243.
Yeah.
Altogether. So
Yeah.
you have-
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little like, so the budget in 2021 and 2022 was $1 million. And then it's up to 1.3 and 23, 22, 23 and 23, 24, it's 1.6 million, and we're estimating the budget this year at 1.7 million. The budget's really high. Is that, because Kirk County Online said it was 300,000 for Kirk County Online, but the middle school students, are they registered under Kirk County Online, or?
The high school students are.
But the middle school students, aren't they online full-time?
Yeah, but they're registered so Grizzly Mountain Homelink is K through 8. So their numbers count in that group.
Cook County Online is just one teacher. And then the cost of purchasing the online curriculum / online platform.
Yeah,
Whereas Grizzly Mountain has how many teachers?
9.5.
9.5. So you've got one FTE in Cook County Online and 9.5 teachers plus classified staff at Grizzly
Yeah.
Mountain. So you're gonna see a very different total budget.
So each teacher, so there's like, it looks like there's 13 FTEs budgeted for next year, 13.5. So does each teacher have like 35 students?
Yeah, 30.
And they follow them?
Yeah, they're called their advisory teacher, and they're responsible for their pep plan.
Okay, and so you're the Crook County, you're the only administrator.
Right,
And then Miss Eberhart just does the online, so she's just.
yeah.
Is she like the teacher / administrator for Crook County Online? Is that how that works?
She's a certified employee, so she wouldn't be an
Okay.
administrator, so she facilitates the program, but she's a certified teacher in regards to budget sort of thing.
Johnny, how many of your high schoolers of these 55 come in person, would you say? I'm wondering if it would be better off utilizing Crook County Online option in a sense of high school, because we are buying those platforms. Are a lot of them relatively, full-time online, or do you see an influx of in-person?
No, yeah, we have I would guess 20 freshmen, 15 sophomores, probably 10 juniors, so 45 probably are coming in for hybrid of our high school kids. And we use it's just a different philosophy. So Crook County Online Options software is pretty expensive relatively. Whereas we use a software that is, I think it costs $100 a student this year. And our software is relatively affordable, but we have to do a lot more supplementation with our teachers. And we actually, the students have $1,100 allotment, and $100 comes out for anybody who's using our online software. So it comes out of their allotment to pay for that. And then our teachers just supplement with no packets and with in-person assignments and extra stuff to make sure that they're getting everything they need. So if a student wanted to be fully online with no interaction with our teachers, they could join the Crook County Online option, and that's a choice. Or if they want sort of a hybrid approach with more teacher interaction, they join Grizzly Mountains online option, or Grizzly Mountains, option cohort, yeah.
So do you do anything where the kids go back and forth to the high school or to the middle school, like?
Yeah,
Homeschool part-time, and then what do they get classified under? Are they?
so
if they take
great question.
The middle school, I did that with my sixth grade daughter. I homeschooled her till noon.
Yeah.
She went and took, I dropped her off at middle school. She went to a couple of classes. Where does
Yeah.
her, where
So
do they put her? Do they put her on like online, Grizzly Mountain, full-time?
yeah, so it's funny, I feel like I've been sitting up here for a while, but there's still so many things that I could explain. So if a student, so like my son Eli, he's my oldest. First 2 terms this year, he was a Grizzly Mountain student. And but he took 2 classes at the high school. And so if there's five periods, per trimester that kids can take classes for the most part. And so Eli was taking 3 Grizzly Mountain classes and 2 Crook County High School classes. Well, after the first 2 trimesters, so he was classified as a Grizzly Mountain student. Sorry, he was classified as a Grizzly Mountain student. Well, winter term, he's like, Dad, I just want to go to the high school full time. I'm like, all right. So this term, he's 5 classes at Crook County High School. So once a student has more classes with one of the schools, it switches. And so if kids want to, one of the cool things about Grizzly is they can take 4 classes at Grizzly and take 1 class at Crook County High School. They're still a Grizzly Mountain student. But once they're taking 3 somewhere, that's when the switch happens and they're officially at that school. We also occasionally have a student at Crook County High School who wants to take a class from Grizzly. And so like we had a girl at the beginning of the year this year who I had just know her from church, and she had done Baker before this year, and Baker uses the same math program we do, and it's called Alex Math, and it's kind of a unique way to learn math online. And she just loved Alex Math, so she wanted to be a Crook County High School student, but she really wanted to take Alex Math still. And so she was with us taking Alex Math online, everything else through the high school. And I don't think I ever saw her come in the building, but she was just taking math through Alex, and she's just A+ both times. And so it's just, Grizzly's all about choices and giving parents choices. And so that's the kind of flexibility that we have.
And I'm curious, I don't know if you could do this or not, but is there a way to calculate the per capita cost of Grizzly Mountain student versus a bricks and mortar student at each level? With all this in and out, that's a little, and the personal accounts, it's a little more complicated, but
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see if there was a way to do a comparison. I don't know. I'd like to know what that is.
So for GMH, and you said.
In a bricks and mortar school, so, I mean, elementary is gonna look different than high school, obviously.
But like the 2 examples you just gave would have been Crook County Online Option kids and then CCHS kids, because Grizzly Mountain is, I'm confused on, you have a school code, you don't have one for high school, or?
So, yeah, we, correct me if I'm wrong here, Joel, but for the last 4 years, we don't have a school code. We are reported at the district level.
Yeah, it'd be this gets super technical, but it's reported as a district program. And those kids would get looped in on like graduation rates and stuff. They would just get looped in with the district's data, not as a separate separate school.
Meaning in with the high school or
Yep,
the
in
whole
with-
separate,
So if you have the
whole
ODE.
separate DO
so
line?
No, ODE presents our data in three categories. So there's district. So they give us a district number. This is our district rate. Then they have, here's Crook County High School, they get their rate. And then here's Pioneer Alternative School and they get their rate. And CO, it's overly complicated. And COCC, when we had a program, they would get grouped in with
I
Pioneer.
mean, so I.
COIC, thank you, and COCC. And then all of those come together to get that district rate. So GMH kids would just get grouped into the district rate, so. All the fun things, stuff that no one really ever cares about, so good questions.
That's why I say Joel knows everything.
Yeah. So I would say, just listening to this, we would need to look at spacing before next year. I'm still having a hard time picturing these kids in classrooms. I mean, you've got to have multiple teachers that are sharing rooms.
Yes.
That are teaching at the same time, in a sense, or in and out. I just don't see, looking at the possibility of study hall. I mean, your middle high schoolers can technically be there 5 days a week. Your
Yeah.
elementary is all day Wednesday, or what's
Yeah.
elementary?
They show up at 9:30 and leave at 3:30.
Okay,
Is that what most of ours is for the day?
Well, there's two groups. So there's a morning group and an afternoon group with elementary.
okay.
Anna, didn't we have GMH space programmed into the bond 3 years ago?
That's possible.
I think we did.
There were all kinds of fun ideas for us with the bond, yeah.
When you don't pass bonds, you don't get space.
Yeah.
We found some spacing solutions, maybe.
Did we?
Okay.
So on next steps, John, I just want to because I want to add one. So a group of staff kind of meet and maybe get a proposal for some space options between now and the start of next school year. Because we know space is premium.
That was one of the first bullet on that last
Yeah, I
slide.
think also, getting both staff and family voice on this potential, like, hey, what aspects of the model are working and which aspects aren't? And coming back with a proposal there. And then I want to add one additional one, because it seems like the model shift where we're getting a lot of middle school students that have needs that we're maybe not prepared for. So maybe we can get a meeting or work with the middle school to maybe figure out how we can adjust our behavior procedures and protocols to make sure we're supporting students and families and staff, so that as you see an influx in potential behavior needs, that you're supporting that. So maybe we can pull the middle school in on that as well, because they'll have the history with these kids. So those are the three things I have written down.
Cool.
And this space is baffling me. As I sit here and try to, yeah, because what do you have, teachers rotating rooms or?
So this is a great
How does this
question.
work?
I have a decent solution, but it would require moving a little bit of.
What does it look like right now? Like, what are?
So we have a number of rooms that have two people in them. And like on, and then we have teachers have one day where they work from home. So, and nobody works from home, well, like most people don't work from home on the same day. And some people don't choose to work from home. Like as I say, most people don't choose to work from home. But there's just, it's like, you just sort of max out the system as best you can. And I mean, we literally, the first year, there were 8 of us and we all worked in one classroom. So we got very creative that year. And there were like little office spaces here and there, and we had some clipboards on doors and stuff. So we've just been doing it that way ever since. The second year, my office was a closet, and I was so glad to have it because I could close the door. Just being able to close a door and have a quiet space when you're on a Zoom or something was really valuable. So we've just been very creative for the last 4 years. So you just
Well, there's
figure it
obviously an
out.
influx. coming
Did
in.
you say that the high school comes there in person?
Yeah, on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
We also have that childcare facility sitting vacant on the high school ground.
Yeah.
That I don't,
I just look at Leland whenever we talk about space, because yes, we I think you said Tetris, like they're.
well, if you had, I haven't actually been in that building. I don't know if it could be put into 2 classrooms, but they might be able to share services with Pioneer or like be close to the high school for the CT programs.
Yeah, that actually.
Yeah, it's only room for one, there's only one classroom in there.
Yeah.
I've just driven by.
We would say yes.
Is Leland over here?
Yeah, he's in this.
So I didn't see Leland.
It's hiding back there.
Yeah,
So I think getting kind of a team space review is definitely a next step.
Do the
How
middle,
much space you need?
Need what we got, what we can
we have
shift.
we have 2 empty modulars in high school, don't we? Yeah,
I think there's gonna be some sped stuff go back in the mod too next year though.
okay,
this,
so that'd
Not
be the,
confirmed yet, but
okay,
It was
that'd be the
discussed, yeah.
one.
this is the driver's ed, a couple of my kids took driver's ed out there. In the back, is that a classroom or was that just used for driver's ed in the evening or was that used like during the day for something?
I'm not sure.
Behind the
exactly what you're
band
talking
room?
about. Was it in one of the mods?
Yeah, I think it was right outside the band room. There was,
I think that's
They
a
have
classroom during the day.
they
Yeah.
do have classrooms. in-
Yeah, cause our kids have had classes out there in the morning, so. Well, obviously, there's a growing need, Johnny, you can see in that middle school category. Yeah, okay. I think it's in the good proximity where you are in some cases for that, because if they are to take electives or things with the middle school and maybe, like Cheyenne pointed out, maybe having a mod at the high school, it allows them to be able to go, walking distance for electives. I don't know.
How many rooms
So-
do you need do you think you need for elementary, like 4 for elementary, 2 for middle, 2 to 4 for middle, 2 for high school? You could have your perfect world, all the space in the world. What would you
Perfect
need?
world.
Probably everyone has a home.
I probably need more time to decide on that, but, like we were building like what they built for Pioneer. I think 8 would be good for where we're at right now. What we really ought to build, and I proposed this like the first year we existed, is if you've ever been to like a college library and there's these little rooms that have a window you can see in. Yeah, like that's each teacher needs an office like that. And then have like 6 classrooms that anybody can use. So every teacher needs their own little private office for teaching online. Because the problem is like, a lot of times teachers are in their classroom by themselves teaching online and it makes the room unusable for other people.
Right,
And so,
Office space actually might free up.
yeah, so what I think you could do is take, like with these 2 multi-purpose rooms that are shared by many people. If we could take one of those rooms and put up paneling in a way that made it really functional for a large number of people. Cause right now we've got like 3 or 4 people in both of those rooms. One of those rooms is used by SPED and needs more space for students. If we could turn one of those rooms into like a space that a lot of people could use quietly, somehow, that could be a real solution.
it's like more in a sense of like, not necessarily cubicles, but like kind of small.
I mean, nobody likes the
squares.
sound of that,
Right,
right?
but
But
in a
thinking like
sense,
like a
little
person,
private
thinking like an
Yeah.
engineer, not like a
Yeah.
nice person, like,
I
yeah, that
just
would
mean,
solve
like,
the problem.
Okay,
So,
is there a way that we could get like a feedback from the teachers at Grizzly Mountain? Even if it's like anonymous way,
Anonymous Google form.
where they could just submit, I mean, they might have, they've been in this for a few years,
The-
just like
the
you,
people
that they
Closest
may.
to the problem will come up with the best solution.
Yeah, that's what I'm
They
wondering.
know the problems that we're not even thinking of.
Right.
Talking of, so, yeah, we'll make sure that we have a way to get feedback from staff. And
Okay,
also include them on, as we have these various teams getting together to review space and models.
yeah.
Making sure teachers and staff are a big part of that is huge.
Yeah, and maybe asking something specific, like Johnny said on spacing, like, do they have an idea? Like, I would have never thought of that. Like Steve said, almost like an office space, or maybe it's you, Anna, but just an actual office space. So I'd just be curious to hear that.
Do they go from, would they walk from their office to the cloud? I mean, is it
Mhm.
back and forth, or if they just, even just finding something offsite, just a little cube of
Yeah.
spots here and there?
Either one, it'd be nice if it was on site, but,
That would be the ultimate.
Yeah,
But
but-
if you had a little spot to where you could house
mhm.
4 or 5.
I mean, we've been in this problem for so long, I've looked it up, you can buy, I mean, they're not cheap, but you can buy these little modular things that you put in the classroom. And they're soundproof, yeah. So there are
You can build it.
solutions out there. What did you say?
I said Leland can build it. It's
That's
okay.
what I like to hear.
Leland's summer list has just gotten longer. Okay.
So
any
this
other-
is probably not going to be a major change by this September. So that, if a school district is gonna make some kind of a change like this, you need to be starting it in January for the following year. So I just wanna make sure, if there's something, minor that we need to do, like build some walls, that's something we could possibly pull off by September, no? So I just want to set the expectation that that's, this isn't this September thing. And Johnny, you guys, can you handle another year of doing what you're doing right now?
The biggest thing pushing on us is, whether or not teachers are gonna be allowed to work from home 1 day a week next year. That,
Who decides that?
district office concerns, HR concerns, union concerns. So,
Collective.
yeah,
Is this circulating as an issue?
yeah.
Jay, what are you doing?
It sounds like it could
Don't
be
blame
an issue
Jay.
if they're getting out of a classroom to work from home, so somebody else can have a classroom.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've been dealing with. I mean, this started 4 years ago.
Right, but obviously.
Teachers had to work from home
Change.
because of space, so.
There is a small solution to go up and rent space from the High Desert Christian Academy that has an entire wing.
Hmm.
That they would probably be willing to rent,
That'd be interesting.
because it would
Nice to
provide,
live there.
Jim?
it would provide the elementary school with playground. I mean, they'd probably need help. But if we could work a deal to rent their space and move elementary campus, but I also wonder too, if it's turning more into an alternative school with the high school, and if we have the ability to use some classrooms or like the childcare center. I don't know, is Pioneer at its max as well? Cause I don't know if do they have 40 kids, 60 kids, can they share with some of our high school?
Yeah, I don't
kids?
think
That's
there's any
negative.
required here.
Yeah, I think I think district, I don't know, we have 13 buildings, I don't know how many buildings we have, but we want to explore where those pockets are and where those
Right.
cushions are. So I think it'd take, Leland and Anna and some folks sitting down to really kind of map this plan out, but I think to everyone's point, we have to start those conversations now because we're not able to build a school by September, so figuring out
Right.
what those options
Well,
are.
even if we just
Even if
planned
it's
out for
temporary for a year.
not to get through this year and then for the following year, if we have a plan.
I really support that idea of Cheyenne's partnering with the Christian Academy. That's a solution
And
for.
I remember us talking about a gym with them. Cause
Partner with us.
we're at the gym spaces are such a nightmare with so many, and then you were picking up more sports and.
Probably be cheaper for us to help them with gyms and remodeling things and do a long-term rent. I mean, I don't know the finance of all that rental thing, and then it's a win-win for the community. The
Yeah.
other thing they provide is I think they provide early childhood
They do,
daycare for
preschool.
families that,
Okay. So who would maybe enter those talks? Is that you, Joel? Get us some info on this.
I would think we'd want to connect just to explore and reach out to them and I'm looking at you, Anna. That'd be the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who
I think
makes
that's
those.
what Johnny was talking about with
Yeah.
coming together with a group of people and.
Yeah,
what's concerning if we have 243 students, that's a lot of students, that's a lot of families,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big size school that we want to make sure that we are.
Something that I've heard though about, it's still possible, right? Yeah. We did have a presentation done at our church and they did state that there are some serious issues out there in regards to older things that really need to be torn out and reconstructed. So just keep that in mind. I don't know that it's just like, oh, we're gonna just tear out these walls and build a classroom. I think it goes deeper than that. So that's just something to keep in mind.
So I think biggest thing is let's start having conversations and get the ball rolling just to explore what's out there. So that's something we can start. Here soon.
I'm very passionate about, a K-8 for STEAM spell.
Oh,
Because we have spacing issues everywhere. And
Right.
it seems like the middle school is, it's difficult. It's difficult. And I'm super grateful for Pal Butte because I feel like Pal Butte helps us with that middle school, enrollment. And Grizzly Mountain sounds like they're getting a lot of middle school kids. And, I've always been a proponent of having STEAM's pillar be like a K-8 or looking at those options just because of our growth. And so it's important that the Grizzly Mountain, and I think we're out of space everywhere, is the point. And so we need to really like plan for that and make sure that we're, planning ahead for that.
I would just make a point historically that Kirk County does some amazing things. One of the reasons I'm really proud to be a part of this group is because when we first set out to partner with Albion Charter School, led by the board, we leaned into the fact that it was going to be a positive relationship. And we built a really positive relationship with our charter school that looked very different for a very long time from what other school districts were doing with their charter schools and what some communities are still doing with their charter schools. We're not anti-charter schools. And then along came homeschooling, and I remember there were parades of homeschool parents who were unhappy with the public school system showing up in front of us on a regular basis. And then we leaned into Grizzly Mountain and we built that homeschool partnership that everybody said couldn't be built. That was a divide that could not be bridged. And we did it. And then we bridged the divide a little bit over the COVID issues with the move to hybrid. I mean, we keep doing things that other people can't say we can't do. And I think this new leaning into this potential partnership with a faith-based school like High Desert Christian Academy is one more opportunity for us to do what everybody else says can't be done. I think you can do that. I think there are opportunities there. And if it's gonna happen anywhere, it's gonna happen in Kirk County.
And that's to bring our community together.
I am very proud of that suggestion and I hope we pursue it and I hope it continues to be led by the board because it'll take the board to push it through.
I'm excited to know there's other space options. I'm having to necessarily play text.
yeah, I like that speech.
So, all right. Is there any other questions for Johnny, Mr. Okers? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, it's good to be in front of
Thanks
you
for
guys.
the info. Yeah.
Yep. All right, see if you can beat my record.
Okay.
Evening.
We have Anna on this too. Okay. Okay, Anna's first, okay. So Kevin?
Yeah, my name's Kevin Milner. I'm the principal at Pal Butte Charter, and this is Meredith Foley. She's the assistant principal currently at Pal Butte Charter, and we are not high school science folks. So it'll be much simpler. And our school design, I think, is a little bit simpler too. So I wanted to start off with this because usually every meeting that we have that's of this importance, we start with our mission and our vision. And so Meredith and I will kind of talk to you a little bit about the focus of our school. This really helps us to make critical decisions about what we're doing across the board with budgeting and staffing and such. So our mission, I'll let you kind of take a look at that. And I think what stands out for me is just our focus on place-based learning. That's the uniqueness of the charter. And that's what we do. That's what we try to prioritize with our staffing and our programming for kids. And then with vision.
We are still a rural public school, and that's something that we know is unique. And The work that went into this mission and vision happened years and years ago. I was honored to be a part of that, and it's something that we, as Kevin said, look at consistently. Anytime we meet with our board, we have our staff review it often and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And that last line that you see there highlighted in bold is that we'd work to serve as a model for preserving schools in rural communities. Is something that's really important to our board right now, and that we're keeping in mind as we move forward. As like, what does that look like? How do we really have pride in being a rural school?
Questions about that? All right. Oops, quick here. So a little history or just an overview of our school. Established in 2010. So we're in our 14th year of operation. Again, we're fully committed to place-based learning. We broached this with our parents last year, our staff, and there's a heavy focus or emphasis for us to continue in that direction. So we do learn about our history of our area, Powell Butte, Crook County, and Greater Oregon, history issues that impact our community. That's kind of the focus of our school. Tuition free. We have 83% school funding as a pass-through from Crook County School District. Currently, there's 210 students, K-8, and it's about an 80-20. So we have 80% of our kids are elementary, 20-ish% are middle school. We're capped at 220 students. 90% of our students reside in Crook County, 30% of which reside in Prineville. And we have a balance of strong academic program with core attributes of place-based learning and experiences. So questions about our overview?
You're tuition free. Where does the rest of your funding come from?
That's coming up in
Oh,
just a
okay.
second. Yeah, good question though. We do have a wait list for some of our grades at elementary, so not every grade has a wait list, but first grade and third grade to certain grades, we have a fluctuation of students and parents that want to come in.
Point of just reference on a couple of special Powell Butte things. The 220 cap number comes from our facility, our septic system. Steve is well versed in a lot of these little special things, as he worked with us for many years on these things, and Anna is, as well as our rural school like title is something that's important. If we go over 250 students, then we would lose a special funding capacity through the state as well. So those are things that we are very aware of.
All right, so we have 26 amazing staff members, 15 are certified, 9 support staff. 21 of our staff are employed through our school. 5 are employed through the school district. We have a full-time counselor through SIA grants, and a full-time PE teacher through a PEAK grant. Some questions about our staff, you know?
I love the picture.
Yeah, great people.
Just on a theoretical,
Yeah,
could you open a second school and stay under your 250? Could you have 2 schools operating under one holding corporation?
as the charter, we would have to, with agreement with you all, our boards combined, we could potentially do that. But if we leave our campus, then like I say, we lose that rural school funding piece, which has been traditionally really important to Crook County School District. We could
Why would you-
split.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Why would you lose the rural if they were 2 separate corporations? Because they'd both be 2 rural schools.
You got an answer?
Yeah, go ahead. Anna knows.
Somebody thought about that and closed that
In
loophole?
2011, the legislature changed the rules about the Brindle Elementary funding and eliminated it,
Mhm.
except for the buildings, the schools in the buildings that were in existence at the time. That's why we had the issues with Brothers when it was closed down during that 2011 change. So if they were to want to open a second site, they could do that. But
They wouldn't get that.
that new site would not receive funding. And if you had enough students, it may not matter.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was just. trying to
yeah,
figure
no,
out
it's something
later.
that we have played around with quite a bit. And if, like Anna just said, if we had enough students, then.
And there's a
would it matter?
complicated algebra problem where if the Powell Butte school site had a certain number of students, the remote elementary funding wouldn't matter anymore. But there's also,
The septic system keeps us from getting
which
there.
we've actually found that the septic system isn't as much of a
Yeah.
constraint as we thought it was before. But I believe the community doesn't really want to see that school getting
You're correct.
extra large, so
Mhm.
there's
There might
A lot
be a
of things that can-
transportation problem or two.
Lots
transportation.
of fun things that we can play around
Cafeteria,
with,
gym.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Just curious. Thanks.
So, one of the things that Joel wanted me to comment about was just the pride there. There's really something different about a Pal Butte student. There's respect, work ethic, very focused. Behavior is not a huge part of our day. Our kids come to learn, our families are super supportive and love their school. So, these pictures just reflect community pride. The school is really a pillar in that community, lots of traditions. And we're trying to do things that really build those traditions and create opportunities for our rural families to come together, to learn together and to be together.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Mhm.
So, collaborations, we do have special education students, 17 right now for academic and speech, supports. We partner with the school district for nutritional services. So we have breakfast and lunch for students, transportation, services, so daily bus service to and from school, field studies. And then also we have middle school sports too. And then facility supports, we have consistent support with our maintenance and our just our maintenance crew. Leland has been just a rock for our school. And so we're really appreciative of he and his staff services and the support they provide for some pretty unique situations that occur at our school. And our challenges, just our biggest challenge is really our facility. Our main building built in 1930. We have our office, gym, and 5 classrooms there. Our modulars are aging, some are very old, 35 years of age, and so we need to do things on a daily basis to keep them up and running. With heating, lighting, and furnishings, we have aging play equipment, blacktop and concrete areas, and really some challenges with getting to and from parking or just pick up and drop off, getting back onto an extremely busy highway. So that's a really big challenge that we face every day. And then also providing equitable education experiences for our students. So the question about 83%, what else do we do? So we have grants, we write grants, we have staffing based on grants, fundraisers, parents and community, really we rely upon them to equalize that opportunity for our kids. And they've been very generous with the support of our school, and we've been able to bring our school back into a more current instructional model with some of the things that you'll see in your classrooms here or in Bend or Redmond. We've worked really hard to try to bring those things to our staff and to our students, and it's because of our community.
So I do notice the septic isn't on here. Leland, did you guys complete that project?
So there's nothing wrong with the system.
Wasn't
Yeah,
it
just
like a
pump it went out.
pump or something? Cause Smack was donating
We were
some.
cleaning stuff and there was a pump that went out, we fixed all
Oh,
that. But the issue, the big issue that's been there for a long time, there's nothing wrong with the existing system. The county environmental health department has put a limit on it because that's what the EPA told them they could safely, EPA or DEQ.
DEQ,
Told them that could safely handle. So you could eventually get it upgraded, but that involves water records, which we track the water usage out there already. It depends on the water, how much water they use out there, how many people were involved in the system and some other stuff. Then you have to write another plan and submit it to DEQ.
And then then they come back with recommendations on what would be
They would probably
needed
come back
to
and
up
say,
the amount of.
well,
kids.
we could tell them, so we want to have 250 kids in there, so then we would submit a plan and they would have to approve it.
Yeah, because they allocate so many gallons per day per kid, and it's just a math equation. That's So you can actually look at that picture, you can see the lines, you can see the drain fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. Extending those, adding more, it's.
So we love listening to the creative problem solving from the last presentation, so we're excited to listen to some others. Because these are our two big things we really struggle with. So,
Yeah, the facility thing, we all know that this is where Crook County is living and we're not the only ones. So we are right there in that and we're super grateful to be able to continue moving it forward with Leland support and a lot of our community partners as well. And then we do work really, really hard to make the budget sing. And ODE has come to our rescue on a number of things for years and years, and we're super thankful for that. And it's a partnership that we will continue. And even within that, we continue to connect with our parents regularly. What is the priority? What is the priority? What is the priority? And our Poway families want their kids outside and moving as much as possible, which is why the place-based education model works well for us and always has. And PE falls right there underneath that. And that's the way that it was even before we were a charter. Mr. Yuma was our PE teacher and he was out there running kids every day. And so I very much appreciate hearing Scott say, and I know he says this all the time, like, we are your charter school. We're super proud of that. We're super thankful to be doing the work that we're doing in the Poway community and how it reaches into Prineville and reaches into Redmond and reaches into Bend. Our physical location is really different than this end of Crook County. And so we work really hard to meet the needs of the families that are there. And just like what's going on in this end, we have major changes going on our end as well. I live almost on the Deschutes line, close to Brasada Ranch. We have more and more families that are enrolling their students in our school. And that feels really, really amazing to have our community kids right there in Powell Butte. And Polish Homes is, as you know, putting in at some point in time, hundreds and hundreds of new family houses. And so we know that we're growing just like all of the things going on down here. And we want to continue to be really a tight partner and a connection to do its best for the families in Crook County and in Powell Butte as your charter school.
Quick question, or a couple of questions. Your speech and language supports and special ed. Do you guys have somebody that comes out?
Yes, so we have and this is through, we're super grateful for it, but just the parameters here. Oregon Charter Law is that we have our special education services sponsored by our umbrella district. And so that is the one thing that no matter, we choose to have all of these other partnerships and we're super thankful for them. Makes us feel like a Crook County school in every other way. But that's one that has always been there from the get-go with special education. We have a part-time sped teacher and then support staff underneath them. They're all wonderful. They work really hard.
Thank you. And then also, I know that highway, that beautiful highway out there that, you know, does such wonders. Have they ever come up with a plan to help you guys out?
The ODOT meetings that happen, and there have been a number of them over the last couple of years, are inclusive of us and they're very aware of our situation. But they are broader community conversations and unfortunately, and I know they don't feel proud about saying this, but the truth that they have shared is until enough people die, they can't do anything about it.
That's when it hits their radar.
I went and asked
So,
for that info and Leland told me it was ODOT. I'm like, why do we have no flashing lights, nothing? He's like, it's ODOT. So he's like, people start writing and that's pretty much the response.
well, and
I
then
received.
what Kevin and I learned is the more letters get submitted, they push out to OSP. And so,
OSP will sit out there at times, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So then OSP, while trying to be very supportive, we become this really annoying tick on their back because then they have to help manage what's going on the highway more and more. So we try to partner with them as well.
When we did the, where you were able to actually get local kids back there again.
Yes.
But I didn't ever see the shift,
Mhm.
it just by timing wise.
Yeah, so Steve is
More local kids actually got into that school.
a number of them. So there was legislative change just within the last 2 years. Last year was our first enrollment year that Powell Butte students with a 97753 zip code got priority when we enrolled. Prior to that, the charter law had been written for district students. And so all of Kirk County was placed at the same, which was, fine. But it's really hard when you have a student that literally lives next to the school that doesn't get into their
They walked to
community school.
And didn't get it.
And we saw that happen year after year, and we obviously weren't the only ones, because then at the state level, charters were able to make that change to prioritize their local enrollment. And then, so our Kirk County students, so first we get siblings, and then Powell Butte, and then Kirk County, and then Deschutes County is the way the classes get filled.
I was gonna say, because siblings have top priority, right?
And there was legislation passed this year that strengthened that even further, if I recall. It was in effect in July
For,
for giving geographic preference.
To local
allowing charters
enrollment?
To give, there was a bill on that
okay,
and it passed. So.
it's good.
Can you say that order again? Sorry.
Yeah, so, well, first we of course fill kindergarten, but the way the
And that
general
goes
order
after
is
your zip code.
siblings get in first to support families, and then Powell Butte, and then Kirk County, and then Deschutes County.
And there was a map of Powell Butte that we drew
Yes.
in conjunction with because defining Powell Butte was an issue.
Yeah.
What is a Powell Butte?
Yeah. I think it stops up here at the top of the grade somewhere.
But that was in our last contract and was part of it.
Know where the power poles are.
Yeah.
That's what we were always told.
Yeah, because it's.
Well, you're on the
in
wrong side of the
vicinity.
power poles. You're gonna be in Powell Butte.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Work.
So then on the list of challenges, this may be an Anna question, so are we as the board responsible for these things, or is it your board responsible for these things? How does that work?
And here's the unique place that only this district lives in. We are the only ones that share space with the charter and their district. So we lease the building and you guys own the land, and we do everything else out of it. So we share responsibilities. Some of these buildings belong to you guys and some of them belong to us. And so Leland has it literally on his wall. The way that those things are divvied out. And so the specifics with facilities, we're able to work through together on like what's ours and what's yours and how we need to partner together to do some of those things. And Leland's amazing at doing that. And then just because we're here together, I'll just lay it right out there. We exist on 83% pass through. And that has been in conjunction of our boards coming together with that number. And 2026 is when we will renew our charter with you all. And every single time we do that, we will ask for more money because it's the right thing for us to do in order to, know that we would be able to sustain a PE teacher, sustain a counselor, maybe shift some of those funds into facilities and some other ways to alleviate the load and help our parents feel that their tax dollar is worth every bit of every other tax dollar in the county.
Can anyone remind me where that 83% number?
Yeah.
I remember exactly where it came from. So I believe the statutory number is 80.
Yes.
And so we had Anna do an analysis of the per capita cost per building. And then that proved to be 83%. So that got applied to the contract. And I have zero idea what it would look like in 2026 or even
Right.
today. We ran that, but that's where it came from. It was an attempt at equity across the system.
And there's like a number of other costs the districts absorbs in terms of like, there's rents, is it still $1?
Yeah.
So we rent the building to the Pellevue Community for $1. So there's,
Yeah.
there's not like.
So all the buildings we own, we rent to them for $1 and then
Just the
they.
ones we own, we rent.
They-
We don't,
live in their own.
So the entire site.
The whole
We own
thing,
the building.
the
They
property.
lease the building from us.
But she said they own some of them.
They own some
entire
lots.
campus.
Right, we lease our own.
Oh, you own
$1.
the land. Oh, the whole, okay, okay.
And I believe the ask, when we got to the 83, was 94 as the starting ask from Bellevue. Which,
It does.
nobody blames you for that.
It
That's
does
where
work
we
out
ended,
to
but
more.
that's where we started.
It does work more out to more than 83% because there's 83% just of the regular ADM, but then of the remote school funding. They get 100% of that. So if you really look at the,
Yeah.
if you were to do the math a little bit differently, it would be more than 83%. So just want to throw that out there too. That was just part of the lease the charter negotiations in the beginning, that 100%.
It's all boring and formula driven. But
So you think it's boring?
I was just saying, I love that stuff. So of the facilities listed here, which are county school districts?
I don't know, there's some mods that are,
Is the main building?
Main building first.
The main building, the cafeteria, and then the library, kinder and first, so there's 3 modulars that.
So the other 4 modulars you take care of as Bellevue. So the main building, the cafeteria, and 3 of the 7 modulars we take care of as a district.
But we say that, but I also think it's fair to point out that given the rising cost of modulars, which has been astronomical, and given the fact you don't have any ability to go out for a bond or something, it's probably fair to say that it would be nearly impossible for you to replace any of those modulars today.
That is
I mean, I don't know where you would get that kind of money.
true.
Maybe you know, maybe.
It's a really hard
That is a lot
equation
of
to
effort.
solve.
It's not a cookie, because I mean, those are $500,000 modulars at this point, if not more. That's a lot of money.
Well, and per your comment earlier about Grizzly being included in the bond, so were we were like so excited about all the things. I know this is the same story over and over, but all the things that were gonna happen for all of Cook County kids, including Bellevue, through that bond. And so now we're making sure that we can, Kevin and Leland have been working tirelessly to make sure that we can get our facilities to the point where they're gonna last until the next ask, whatever that might be, just like other places.
There are no capital funds available from the state specific to charter schools, right?
Not for facilities.
Right.
At this point in time.
And your community is very dead set against coming back under the umbrella of Cook County. Is that a really contentious issue? I mean, I was super grateful to go tour the facility and I think it's wonderful. But I definitely saw the first place I went on was a tour to the basement, thank you. I mean, and so seems like, are you able to get more facility funding if you're under Cook County? People are just dead set against that.
I don't think that either way solves the problem right now. Leland, you're welcome to, of course, jump in here at any point in time. I don't think that that will be the dial that moves anything right now. I do believe that many people would be very dead set against, and others would be like, well, we should talk about it, just like any big change like that. We have a lot of pride in our community around the charter was started because the school was closed. And so there's a lot of pride in coming together and saving the community school. And that continues to be a big driver of the independent spirit of the Palbutean. And the kind of families that come there are just really invested in that. I think they like that it is an option. Grizzly has its niche, which hearing about that today from Johnny was really special. And we see that those homeschool families that want to find their spot within the public education world. And that's, in my opinion, incredible that it exists here. And something to be super proud of. And our niche is the small school niche, where kids are in a very traditional brick and mortar school And it feels very small schoolish as a K-8. And the parents enroll their kindergartner because they want them to still be there in the 8th grade. That is what they are looking for. And so not to say that charter or not a charter changes that model per se, but again, the pride and the work ethic that goes into maintaining what we've built people would be afraid of how that would change if we were to come back into the district as just a district school, which Scott knows, like we never talked about just being a district school. There's been conversations about magnet status or other kind of status, but again, it feels like right now, all of Frick County is in this place with facilities that collectively, no matter what your status is, we're all just trying to make sure that kids and staff are safe and able to learn every day.
I do want to correct your history just a little bit.
Okay.
We had not actually closed it. The superintendent intended to close it and
Yeah.
had proposed that in a budget cutting
Yeah.
exercise. And Powell Butte moved with incredible efficiency to turn it into a charter school to keep it from closing.
Thank you,
So it
yes.
never had a moment when it was closed.
It
It's
was,
been a
you're right.
continuous School
That was the
since
key.
the thirties.
That was key that it stayed open, actually. Mhm.
Right, well, thanks for having us. today. I think we have to come back to do an annual report at some point soon too, so you'll see us again.
Yes.
So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna give a little just overview of the like contractual relationship we have.
Okay, so I just kind of wanted to explain a little bit about just how the charter works and the differences, like Grizzly Mountain is not a charter school, it's a program of the district. The way that charter schools work in Oregon, it starts, I mean, you start at the very beginning of it, it's just, it's an organization, it's its own organization. So they have their own board of directors. They have their own tax ID numbers, their own registry with the state of Oregon, all that. So it's even before they have a school or a location or anything, it starts out as an organization. And so then what the charter schools end up doing then, of course, is to design a school, but they can't in Oregon be a public school with state school funding unless they're sponsored by a district. They don't have to be sponsored by, I mean, I think you could be sponsored. Once we had a charter school that was an online charter school, it wasn't necessarily a building, a school and a building. So, the district and the other organization build a contract that's called a charter. So the charter has all of the agreements between, like from finance and, all the different things, but it also oversees how the charter school is going to operate because the district is held responsible. So in our charter in the charter contract with the charter school organization, there's a lot of stuff in there about, they won't discriminate and they will follow certain policies and there's just, how many students will they have, what standards will they follow, all the different kinds of things. And so it's not just about money. And then once they have that relationship, then the school generally has to then find a place to live. And as Meredith mentioned, in our situation, it just so happens that that was the most logical place is in the Powell Butte School building because they had talked about closing it down. And so the second piece of that is that we have a contract for the lease of the building. That is a completely separate thing. So if they wanted to, the charter school organization could say, we want to operate out of, somebody has a big barn or something. I mean, I'm just, it's a fair thing. Powell Butte. Or they wanted to build their own, site or something like that. They're not tied to our building. As long as the school district and the charter organization can come to agreement on, are you gonna be able to do all the things you need to do and meet all of the requirements that we need you to meet? So just understanding that that's two different relationships, I think is just important. And then, as they mentioned, we have additional contracts for, like, we decided several years in that we would provide the transportation. Initially, they had their own school bus and trying to maintain that, and it got really old. So it just made more sense for the school district to provide that transportation. The school district has access to a transportation grant through the state school fund, so we get 70% reimbursement. We pass that savings on to the Powview Charter School. And then nutrition services, we already have a nutrition services manager. We've got, the USDA program, and we already follow all of the rules to have that program. And so we just opened up a nutrition services operation at that site. So there's a lot of layers to the agreement, but they have their own board.
Yeah, that's why I was confused.
I didn't hear you mention the provision of special ed, because there's a whole set of
Yeah.
rules around that.
So in Oregon, all of the charter school, there's laws about how charter schools have to be operated, and one of the requirements is that the school district that's sponsoring the charter has to provide the special education. And of course, all schools within our purview have to contribute to overhead. We have to have a student information system, the district for the charter and all the schools. We're responsible for all the state reporting, and there's a lot of it. And then, we have to pay for a superintendent and all the different things that you have to have. And then we have to we have building insurance, et cetera, at Powview. So we do have costs. And when you look at the budget for the center for Powview, you'll see several line items on there. Some of those are just things the school district has to pay for. There's one line item on there that says pass through something, charter school pass through. It's the biggest line item on there, and that is my estimate for how much we will pass through to the charter school. Then they get that revenue, and then they get to decide how they spend it. We don't tell them how to spend it. And then sometimes there are grants that they're eligible for that we either have to sign off on, or it has to kind of run through us, like this SIA fund, and the state tells us how much is allocated to the charter schools for that. There's another one. It's
Like early literacy can be connected at this
Yes.
point, and Joel's been super, we can't say enough positive things about the collaboration. And like Scott said earlier, that's not necessarily the case in charter schools around the state. And so we work, and even with the transportation pieces, the busing was its own small nightmare for sure. But it was also like, well, if I have a kid at the middle school and the high school and at Powview Charter, and kids are getting on like how many different buses every morning? And so it just makes sense for our parent communities to align a lot of these things as much as possible. They don't need to pay a lunch bill at the high school and then a lunch bill at our place. They can do it all together now in one place. And so all of this alignment has been for the sake of our students and families, and the ease of us and the financials passing back and forth.
Also remember that during COVID, there was substantial federal money that came down that didn't necessarily have to be shared with the charter. The district made the choice it would share equitably with the charter all the dollars that came through. We made that extra step to make sure that they got their share of that, or at least the benefit of the investment of it.
The ESSER 2 had a requirement to share with, it's really weird. ESSER 1 had a requirement to share with private schools, but not charter schools. ESSER 2 had a requirement to share with charter schools, but not private schools. And then ESSER 3 had no requirements at all. But what we did is we met with Powview and said, what do you guys see as the biggest need? And we'll just spend the money rather than passing it through to them. And that was the HVAC system, because the boiler. It's adorable. It's really cute, but we don't rely on the boiler as much now, correct? Isn't that?
Just for the halls, yeah.
Yeah.
I never heard you refer to it as the adorable word, ever.
It's super cute. We need to have a picture of that.
So how does transportation work? When our kids went there, you bus them to and from the middle school and they got
Yeah.
on other buses. Is
Yeah,
that
same.
still the same?
Mhm.
Do they get on buses from the middle school or do they, because we had to pick ours up, they couldn't travel home on buses.
What year were your kids there?
18, 19?
Oh, yeah, things have changed.
We've aligned the start and end times with transportation specifically in mind. So just like the Grizzly Mountain kids, when they reach the middle school at the end of the day, they're there for a very short period of time. So there's no shenanigans going on in order to then get on their next bus to get home
So they can get all the way home.
And play sports if
and
they
play sports. Yeah.
want to.
Any more questions for Anna or help you? Okay. Thanks, Brenda. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you all.
We'll move on to you, Joel.
Tammy, I don't want to ruin things, but there is dinner back there. Is there a plan? Do we want to, we're about halfway through our 8 o'clock session. Do we want to take a little break?
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, it's.
Let's take a 10-minute break.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Come back and.
Guests, everyone is welcome. There's, it looked like tacos
Oh.
or
Like a taco salad
Taco
bar, but
salad.
there's also flour tortillas, so you can make burritos if you want.
it's not Tuesday.
No. Taco
So-
Monday.
On Monday, they're preparing for your meeting tomorrow.
We'll start back at 6 o'clock. Well,
Yeah, sorry.
You're welcome.
You're good, Joel.
Okay. We're back going, Aaron.
Yes.
If you missed it, so this is a picture. I tried to find the best organizational chart I could find. So in 1855, the Erie Canal Railroad hired an artist to put together their organizational chart, and it's really cool. You should Google it. You can drill down. They've got all these clusters and whatnot. So this is the target for the Kirk County School District organizational chart. We're not there, but we're marching towards that level. So, and then I found what is the worst organizational chart I could find, and this was the one I found online. So organizational charts have come up. I want to say this is maybe the third time with our new board members asking, hey, we got to visualize what's the district, and we had some documents that kind of showed kind of really high level. And I think just trying to get more and more information. So I can promise you that the organizational chart in front of you is not perfect, and it's not 1855 Erie Canal Railroad Company level yet, but we are hopefully just marching a little bit more towards the board being able to see kind of what, in this one in particular, I really tried to show the horizontal alignment, as that I believe is our goal. Wish I had them on the horizon. I think goal 1.7, I want to say, on our strategic plan. So And every time I look at this, I find a little update, but, what you'll see on this. This is a draft, and we'll continue to improve this, Anna and Jay continue to revise it, because as you know, our staffing changes monthly. Every month in your consent agenda, we have hires, and folks that are, resigning. So this is a draft to just kind of get a sense so that you can see the horizontal alignment, and ask questions.
Grizzly Mountain's off on its enrollment numbers.
That's
Yeah.
that's the K, it's funny, you will see, Shia, that's like the K-8. Because the high schoolers, I think, are coded to Crook County
Gotcha.
online options, so those are just the K-8 numbers, so. The purpose of this is to help you guys see, as you wanted, horizontal alignment. You'll also notice some things that are missing on this. The departments, for example, have a number of staff as well that I didn't add to this, quite yet. We can add those if needed. For example, our HR department has, Tina Simmons. So those I just left those high level. So the plan is, so as we kind of continue the conversation today, over the summer, I think just working with Anna and Jay and Dr. Skinner, we want to analyze, adjust, and refine our service levels for the 24-25 school years to make sure we're aligned, we're getting services to the students in an equitable way. So we'll plan to, as Dr. Skinner arrives in July, probably by late July, we'll be kind of going through this, looking at what revisions need to be placed, hearing from our staff where our holes are, like we've talked about our counselor, for example, needing some extended time. So that's the plan, is we'll kind of go through this, update, revise. One piece that isn't necessarily on here perfectly is typically the org chart shows who was evaluating who. That's something that has shifted every year in my time here, where 1 year I would be observing or evaluating the transportation department. This year, it fell under Leland. So those are conversations that happen in the superintendent's office and HR before we go into the school year. So my recommendation is that Dr. Skinner and I will have those conversations and then come back to the board in September, once the school year has started, with an updated draft that has, hey, here's where we're starting our school year. Here's who's evaluating who. That would be the plan for this. With that said, this was just an agenda item requested by the board. I'm gonna write down as many questions as I can. Like I said, this is far from perfect, but I think about step 50 would be the Erie Canal Railroad organizational chart. I think we're on about step 8. So whatever you guys see or questions you have to help us move those steps forward, we're welcome to try.
So Joel, just to clarify, what's on here is currently what's staffed. Is that fair
This
to
is what
say?
is staffed according to the websites of those schools. So I went on and found as much as I could. And it's never as easy as you would think it would be, because like I said, staffing changes monthly. People come, people go. Student counts change daily. So if you have specific questions, I can dig in. And I mean, for example, like our athletic coaches, they aren't here. So there's a number of staff that maybe aren't on here. What I really wanted to give you tonight was just so you could see that horizontal alignment and ask questions like that.
It would be helpful to me to have a better understanding of the classified staff, particularly around transportation and nutrition services.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many of those folks are in each one.
Mhm.
And the facility staff, I guess, are not assigned by building, or they are? So they're just general.
Yeah, they're just
So,
assigned.
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to know more about.
So I heard
The
classified
classified
staff,
organization.
nutrition, and then transportation as
Yeah.
well. You guys know, when Chair Brumble asked for a chart, I did my very best, so I will make this even more complicated for you. I just want to make it so it's, when you guys ask questions, you can get the information you need. So we'll have classified staff or nutrition as well as transportation.
The other question for me would be, I know Klein and Brothers are under the general supervision of one principal. Is there anybody else like that, or?
So
are these
actually,
really all
it's
reporting
actually
to the superintendent?
split this year, where Brothers, Jim Bates takes that stipend because he's there, and then Kerry Lombach has the other Polina stipend, so.
So it's some way of depicting.
Yeah,
Where things such as they are, because I can't. Don't know.
Joel, on Pioneer, they have a lot of shared teachers. Do they just go back to the high school?
Yeah, this is something, I was actually, when I was an assistant principal at the high school, I was really hesitant to be like, oh, these students from Pioneer are coming back to the high school. This has been one of the best things for students both at the high school and Pioneer, because these students now can come over, you know, they can have in their second period, come over, take a welding class or jump in band. So there's a ton of shared staff. So, I mean, essentially any staff at either place is essentially shared. Because we even have some students go from the high school to get some extra reading support at Pioneer. So it's really interchangeable and it's really become a great way to leverage resources more effectively.
So I guess for those that are stationed or positioned at Pioneer that are
Yeah.
not shared,
Yeah.
I guess, do they share other roles than being like a core academic teacher? Cause you have 4 teachers teaching 68 kids. Is that how I'm reading this?
I believe so. I want to make sure there's also a couple, SPED and ERC teachers.
I'm just like the core one says 4, so does that mean?
That would be like English, math, social studies, science. So they've got, I think, 4 core teachers. They also have, and this is where this gets a little, it doesn't fit in these perfect boxes where, like, I think of Mackenzie Kulak, for example, who's the graduation coach. So she's stationed there, but she helps Kirk County High School students, Pioneer students, Kirk County Online students. So there is this, I tried to make it as concrete as possible, but there is this element of shared staff that support students wherever they are.
Where is she at?
I think she's under shared staff, I wanna say. Or maybe she's on I think her technical role is graduation coach. And she should be under shared staff. I maybe put her somewhere else, so that's one correction I could make.
Okay.
And this is way too much information to absorb on the fly. If you wanted to, as you guys do, you can take this home, look at it, email me questions. I just wanted to at least have a working document where we're giving you the information you're wondering about.
I think overall, I would like to see, not necessarily that every building needs it, but I see like at middle school, we have a choir and band teacher half the time, you know, the same with high school, but then I don't see that we have band or choir at any elementary level.
Yeah, there's music. I've heard of this issue.
Yeah. Like
There's a
just in
full-time-
programs like that, cause you have kids that don't see these programs for 8 years.
And I think that's the right conversations with that vertical alignment
Yeah.
goal. As well as the performing arts goal that the board set. Of those areas that, I mean, I've heard loud and clear, we need K-12 programs. So I think, you know, you'll look at Barnes Butte, the blue one on the left, you do have a 1.0 music teacher. But we know that, at Steens Pillar and Crooked River, they just embed those music standards and do some specialized, I want to say like music camps, throughout the year. So yeah, I think at least looking at the information this way helps you kind of visualize where those gaps might be. So that's the whole purpose. And then we can take the information, and go to work and trying to start fill these holes.
So on your list, like for Steens Pillar, Barnes Butte, Crooked River, they all have speech listed, but then you have it as a shared position. So do they have their
Yeah.
own?
Yeah, there's, and I would,
Okay.
Jay, so there's speech pathologists who are like the licensed people that I believe do one level, you know, really high level. And then there's speech pathologist assistants that are in different buildings as well, that are, I think are more of like helpful, you know, more of an assistant role. So yeah, there's that kind of like floating staff within some people stationed. And then to complicate matters even further, I know that some speech language pathologist assistants also support Grizzly Mountain Homelink. You know, so there's this, it's hard to make it all fit perfectly in one box. So I think I need to expand the kind of shared section. But yeah, we can go really, you can go as deep as you want, in terms of giving you guys the information.
How is it that Crooked River doesn't have an ELD teacher?
Great question. So I know that, the main, core of our ELD students are at Barnes View, where they've got that special culture language program. So they have ELD teachers there, but for those, ELD students that aren't at Barnes View, if they are at Crooked River, those teachers will peel off, and get them however many their minutes are. So it's push and support. So someone's not stationed there, but they'll go and give those students support in the building.
That legit under Title VII?
Yes, but I think we can do better. So we make sure those requirements are met by getting those students those ELD services, but it would be nice to have a full-time person there. However, because the cluster is so much, the focus is so much higher, the concentration of ELD students, that's where the full-time program is.
There's considerable talk about the CO load issue, right?
Is it supposed to be at each school? Or is that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there was a clear standard on it, but we do have a civil rights obligation. They took every child has equal access to education. What does equal access mean?
Yeah.
Maybe it means the push-it method. I don't know.
Yeah, there's actually a long story of, the dual language program used to be at, Barnes View, and then as that dissolved into this, what's called limited English cohort. It's called the LEC cohort. So there's a focus, a concentration of our ELD students there. So that's where the majority of the services are. Whereas if a student is in Crooked River, they have the choice to go up there, but then if they don't choose that, then we make sure they get services at Crooked River. There's just not a full-time teacher at Crooked River.
I mean, the issue is that the way you find out it was wrong, is somebody complains to the Department of Education or the Federal Department of Education. And by the time they arrive on the scene, you're wrong before you even get a chance to explain you were right. So you want to try and be proactive about making sure you don't get into that situation.
And I know the teachers, and I think we have an ELD coordinator, actually make sure all those students get the minutes that they're required to get. It's just, as you can see, we're kind of spread thin, so just making sure everyone's getting those required minutes is really important.
And then I think, I saw Anna actually sent back some answers in regards to the counselor questions I had at the budget meeting. And as I look at these, I know you have talked about, and Anna put it too in her explanation with the support people, just like with that ELD program where the people, or was it ELD that you said are in more of a support within the schools. Is that alleviating the workload for the person up here? Because what I'm hearing is that, like in the counseling department, you have a coordinator or a service person, but they can't actually write reports. So although like maybe on a given day, it's nice to have like an extra person to help with the kid. In the end, it's still, the whole caseload is still on the actual licensed counselor. Is that, am I understanding it right? Or
I think to a degree, like I think the counselor example at the middle school is a good example where if there's a very deep level of need where we have a student who's maybe suicidal, the reports that the counselors filled out must be completed by a licensed counselor. So that deep level of need can only be met by a counselor. However, in the middle school, for example, the student support coordinator position, where if there's, for example, a student who's just having trouble with a friend, that at least the student support person can take that load away from the counselor and just, hey, let's work through this issue with a friend. What can you do? And that frees up the counselor to do more work. So I think.
but that doesn't need a report.
Yeah. So it's just, it's tricky, you know, and I think we try to get the highest qualified, most licensed people in as many roles as we can and go from there.
And then what's our contract with the health department to bring in people to write reports if we can?
I have to look, so I don't know if we contract with the health department on anything.
No.
Is
just
that
the school-based
best?
Health center.
Well,
building.
Best Care would
Best
come,
Care.
right? They would be through the health department.
Yeah,
Because we don't have a contract with Best Care, but we use their counselors to write reports when we're understaffed. So are they contracted under the health department? Or who are they
That's-
contracted under?
Now, I remember, I want to say back in July, there was a question of like, what is Best Care's relationship with our district? And I think the broader picture of, I've gotten more questions around what, are there third-party people coming into our schools and what they do? And that's something I think we need to dig into, because I think anytime we're outsourcing any sort of service, want to make sure we're clear on that.
So Best Care replaced Lutheran Services as the contractor to the county. They are the mental
Oh,
health
to the
department.
county.
That's the county's mental health department.
So we have a contract with the county.
No, that we have a contract.
No, I've never heard of us having Best Care write reports that would go into our student
Yeah.
information.
Do they just follow students into our school that are already there?
Probably.
From what I've
Jay?
heard is if they're,
A family might contract with Best Care on their own. That family may ask for Best Care because they have a certain amount of minutes they would meet to meet with that student at school. So Best Care may come in and meet with a family or a student, but that's because of services they have outside of school. But they're utilizing the school to exercise those minutes that they need. So Best Care may come in for that. They also may come in for what's called a multidisciplinary team. So if you have a student that reaches like a threat assessment for something that may be out there, Best Care is the county's mental health, as Scott mentioned. So they would sit on the multidisciplinary team to assist mental health services on a large case, like a complicated case. But they sit there then with Crow County Sheriff, Pineville PD, juvenile department, members from our district. That's a team of all services countywide that would sit there to staff an emergency circumstance. But Best Care only comes in to meet with students, to my knowledge, that already have a pre-existing relationship with the family. We're not bringing them in on our own to meet with families or kids.
So this document isn't going anywhere. I have written down, Mr. Cooper, classified nutrition, transportation staff, groupings for evaluation, updating who's evaluating. So, expect to see this back to you, September after I meet with Dr. Skinner, and it'll have kind of who's evaluating who. And we'll just have this as a living document and can, as you guys want more information, we can update it, and at least it's a version towards what you guys want.
Is there,
Oh, just a simple question. The shared positions, there's 3 positions that are duplicated. Are those duplicates or those more than one?
Yeah, I believe it's because like what if I were to update this, like, cause I believe we have 2 welcome center coordinators. So I think what I'll do in the next version is just put a number next to it rather than duplicating them.
I was wondering that
Yeah.
too.
is there a way you could do the groupings where it's a little bit easier to see what flows K through 12? Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at robotics. We
Yeah.
have it at, looks like Crooked River and Steens Pillar, but not Barnes Butte, but then we do have it or offer something.
Yeah, and the middle school has
Yeah.
STEM, which would kind of be the bridge there.
I'd
Yeah,
just be curious to see
Yeah,
the
that makes total
pathways of
sense.
our program, like what do we really have that's K through 12 in a sense? Even if that is something like that, where these have robotics, but this one has STEM, doesn't necessarily have to be exact, but kids get to see and do other options.
Yeah.
Jen and I did get asked, at the bond conference, because we have such a good, well-known rodeo,
Hey.
why we don't have a vet program. But they were very concerned, they're like, we would
Yeah.
Kirk County.
That's interesting.
And why do we not have, why do you guys have a vet program feeding into OSU? Because we have such a great vet school at OSU.
I believe, I could be wrong, that Dan McNary has a pre-vet,
He has a
couple,
class.
yeah, he's got a couple
Program.
sections, but he would be under ag teacher. So no, I believe we do have pre-vet.
Okay.
classes. I've seen them do the,
I mean, we are on the Cowboy channel
we-
and we do have some.
I've seen photos, they do, he got this machine that shows kids how to, artificially inseminate cows. So I know that's out there. So I believe we have some sort of animal science class, I hope.
Pretty sure that's just the ag
Yeah.
course, my kids have taken that.
Yeah.
Then is there another way, Joel, to see, the pathways that what we have at the high school, what they go into?
Like
Like
Fiki pathways.
fields?
Yeah.
I know, you had mentioned when I've asked that before, like we have the construction A, B, and C, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
what can kids leaving Crook County High School do?
Yeah.
You know,
What
with
industry
a certificate, or
certifications?
what do they leave here with, or what,
Right.
you know, how could we work,
Yeah.
maybe partner better with?
Yeah. I think what it'll look
Other-
like is I think on the back of this, I'll have a pathways document that shows K-12 pathways and beyond, because I know, Ryan Cochran's done some work with that, so that'll be good information to share, because then you can see that does our staffing align with our pathways?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great, great.
I think your first edition is great.
Yes.
Probably better than that Erie Canal.
I'm not a fan of here is 1855. All right, I think we got graduation next. Eric, if you want to pull that one up.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so it is graduation season, and believe it or not, the board actually has a number of roles as we enter graduation events. So graduating this year at Crook County Fairgrounds, this is kind of the overall ceremony, begins at 6:30. Board arrives around 6 o'clock. And there's more than just that. So Thursday, June 6th. And Tammy will coordinate and get this information to the board. It's always calendar books and, okay, so we've got a senior breakfast. This is an awesome tradition that the board has been a part of.
Yes.
So Thursday, June 6th, the senior breakfast at 8 o'clock at Club Pioneer. The board arrives around 7:45 to help serve breakfast to the graduates. This is a ton of fun. It's completely optional, but I hope you take us up on it. There's also always a battle. The most prestigious position is not out serving tables. It is doing the dishes.
I know how to do that.
I think Scott's, I wanna say Scott's done it before. I think Eric and I always, Anna's done it, so, it's a lot of fun. You get to talk with graduates, they're excited, you know, so, that's one thing to put on your calendars, and again, we'll email you these dates. Friday, June 7th. So the graduation parade was something that started during COVID. It's, a community favorite. They put up the signs. Big, kudos to Jake Huffman and his team, because this is a ton of work. They're out putting up the signs on 3rd Street. Unfortunately, this year, because of all the construction around town, they've actually had to change the route. So in the past, the board, I believe, has hung out at the Golden Coffee Place. We're having to redo that. I don't think we're even going down that street anymore, so we'll get details. Traditionally, the board has gotten together and been at one location to kind of smile and wave as the graduates go by. So we'll get you that information, but that's Friday, June 7th during the day. All right, now it gets complicated. So, that evening at 6:30, like I said, Crook County Fairgrounds, board arrives around 6, but we've done.
Are we not walking with the grads this year?
Those are the options. So this is where it gets a little up to the board's discretion. So some board members have walked with the graduates before. Some board members have just met at the at wherever the ceremony is, whether it's Ward Road, this year it's at the fairgrounds. So if you want to walk with the graduates, which means you meet them at the high school, they take pictures, it's tons of fun, and then you do this giant line and walk either to Ward Road or the fairgrounds. Like I said, we've had some board members who love doing that and want to do it. We've had some that just say, hey, we'll just meet you at the spot. So if you want to walk, which is a good time, I believe it's 5:45, you meet there. And again, we'll email this out. It's a lot to keep track of. So you can walk or you can just drive and meet us there. There is special seating for the board, and this is another thing where some board members have really enjoyed being a part and some haven't, and it's completely up to you individually. So follow along with this. Put it in a diagram. Okay. So this is the Crook County Fairgrounds. So we've got the graduate sitting, we've got the main stage, and that green box is Crook County School District representative seating. So this is during the ceremony, this is where the board sits, our distinguished alumni, any like guest speakers, so they'll sit there. And then here's again, where different board members have felt differently. When it's time to shake hands and hand out diplomas, I've had a board say, Joel, I do not want to touch people's hands, like I have nothing to do with that. Just let me sit here and enjoy the ceremony. Other board members, like if you've had you know, your son or daughter or nephew graduating, it's a really cool thing. Board members have to put up with a lot. You finally get something positive where you get to go on stage. So what we've done about this time every year at a board meeting is the board says, hey, I've got my daughter's graduating. I want to be one of the representatives. And it changes every year and no one ever's like, hey, what did we do last year? Okay, so I put it in options. All right, option A. The board designates 1 or 2 members to come on stage, shake hands, and pass out all diplomas. Option B, we've done this. All board members come on stage to shake hands and pass out diplomas. It does get a little crowded up there, just know. Option C, the board decides, hey, you know, Scott will hand out the first 50 because, you know, his daughter's graduating, and then Jessica's got a, you know, nephew, and so then you kind of rotate. Or option D, other. We've done all of these. So it really comes down to someone has like a, you know, a cousin or a neighbor or a daughter or sibling. We want you to have the option to hand them the diploma. It's pretty cool. You get some great pictures. So I am just presenting this to you and the board I'll just figure out what works best.
I have a senior. I'd love to be able to hand her a diploma. Jen, you have somebody, don't you?
I do. I would like to be up there as well, to shake in hands and stuff.
I don't mind either way, so I'm fine.
I don't have.
Handing and shaking, I don't have a senior, so it's better for just.
I don't mind being up there and shaking hands, but I don't want to make a big mess of things.
Yeah,
It's not that big a deal if we have it up there.
It's not that big a deal.
It's fine. Everybody wants to be up there.
Does it look better if we're united up there together?
I think that.
Or what's your?
I think it is very easy when the staff puts an extra platform up there. I don't know why that's so difficult to do, but if there's a long enough platform, there's plenty of room. If it's one
Steve, you
platform,
have
it's
full of
very
fairgrounds,
crowded.
don't you?
It's a different stage now, though.
It's bigger, right? Shorter.
It's, I think it's bigger, but the year before we bought the new stage, we actually added on to the other stage so we could get all the board, on that stage, we could put all the board members actually on the stage. So it was quite a bit bigger, but we switched to this new stage and I know we can't put everybody up there to sit. But
If we're shaking hands,
Yeah.
I think we could fit.
I think the board went up there, everybody went up there last year and stood up there.
I think so.
Were we all up there?
I think one year we had everyone sit.
No, we were
and that's
rotating, no, we were,
super
I think
we were
that's
sitting on the
right.
ground far away and we were rotating in and out. That was
Okay.
the rotation last year, and it was a mess from our perspective, just because of the transfer, the need to transfer.
Either up there or you're not, just.
Yeah, I would really, I think that's a much better situation.
So,
Pick one.
so can I throw out, do you think we could get everyone up there to shake hands?
I'd have to measure, I'd have to see how big it is. Well, I think we'd get everybody up there to shake hands, yeah. We could probably make that.
Yeah. And then Cheyenne and Jen, you guys just be closer, so when your person comes, you can give them a hug. Okay, I have all board's gonna stand up there and shake hands for the diploma piece.
One other element.
Yes.
Going back to 2022, we did this once, it was highly popular, and I think it's a good idea to bring it back. In 2022, we put extra seating on the other side of the stage from that green box. And we invited local dignitaries to sit there. The mayor was there, the sheriff was there, District attorney was there, I don't know, there's all kinds of people, circuit judges, there's a whole list of the electeds. And so we emphasized in this speech that as you cross from your school years, you're crossing into your community life. And your community leaders are here to welcome you as members, active and participating members of the community. It's hugely symbolic. And it worked, and it was probably less important to the graduates than it was to the elected officials who were there, but they appreciated being made a part of what is a community event, not a school event.
Right.
And I thought that was an important element I'd like to bring back. The second piece was that we really focused that year on reaching out to all staff and pointing out that most of our kids have gone from K through 12, and every teacher, not just the high school teachers, was a part of that instruction. And we invited all staff to come and be a part of the graduation that night. It wasn't required, but it was encouraged.
So do they sit with?
Yeah, they sat in the faculty, there's a faculty section.
Yes,
Right in
okay.
front of the yellow box, there'd be a different,
And it means something to the kids when they're, you know,
Like, that's my
teachers,
favorite.
fifth grade is there or something. So that, we didn't have huge uptake from the.
staff was
elementary
super
faculty.
light, so I think what we have to do is figure out the chair piece, because I did have another box on that other side for the community, and I learned that last year, sent out letters and didn't get a huge response from the community dignitaries. But that's something we can just follow up with phone calls and just make sure we get our chairs right, because I think the issue was, hey, we've got all these empty chairs right next to the
Right.
stage, so we just gotta be a little more,
We had good return in 2022.
I remember the first one, there was a
I
lot,
didn't think
so,
we did it last year.
and that came from, I'll work with Tammy, because that came from the superintendent's office.
Well, the year we
those
did
people.
2022, the board chair sent the invites. Maybe that was the difference.
Okay, yep, we can take another run at it, and the symbolic feature.
All right,
Somebody
invites.
else All you have to do is sign up.
Okay, all boards gonna shake hands, so you'll sit in the green box. When it comes time, you guys will all move to the front. I'll let Mr. Huffman know. We're gonna make room. All board will shake hands. Shine and Jen will rotate through when their people come up. We'll add the community section again, and then we'll add a staffing piece as well.
I'm just picturing this is in the arena, right?
This is in the arena.
The outside or the inside?
Depends on the training.
I just, like,
This-
how do you
it's-
keep the
it's-
dust?
It's initially.
They roll the flat.
Yeah, it's Casey at the fairgrounds. They roll that thing so well.
Just with the amount of.
Pro tip, heels. You're gonna be walking. If you're walking, make sure you wear good shoes. So that's something I've learned over the, not that I've ever worn.
Wearing heels?
Not used wearing heels to graduation. Let's make sure that's on the camera, but,
Under the main stage, does
yeah.
that say Pioneer
Yeah.
Alternative High
So,
School?
during the ceremony, the CCH, Kirk County High School principal, superintendent, as well as Pioneer principal sit up there throughout the whole thing. When it comes time to hand out the diplomas, that's when the board goes up and shakes hands.
And we just sit in the front on the ground and then walk up.
You'll sit in that green section. There'll be chairs for you guys there. Think, yeah, we'll have people kind of directing you there, so you'll know where to sit. And then right before the graduates stand up to go get their diplomas, you guys stand up and go there. So you'll be right to the left of the stage if you're facing that.
The other thing we've done for years, and it's a nice tradition I'd like to keep, is that if you have a kid graduating, then you have an opportunity to come in and countersign their diploma. It's usually the board chair's signature, but we'll add the other board member's signature on top, which is a very nice tradition.
So you said you have a senior.
Yeah.
So we'll.
And then you can go.
I have this.
Okay, next steps on this is you'll get an email from Tammy or I just with the details and your schedule. I believe Mr. Huffman's actually on the schedule for the May 13th board meeting to go through all the events, and so you'll be able to ask questions as well.
Do we have more events that the board is usually a part of than just the breakfast?
There are other events, like baccalaureate, there's the senior trip, but the ones I just described, I believe, are the only ones the board has.
What are they doing with the awards assembly? Are they gonna do a live assembly or a taped assembly?
I want to say, hey, Eric, if you go click, there's a link on that front page. graduation resources. Big thank you to Tanya Howard, just a shout out, she's put this page together.
Hey, give me 1 second.
So Tanya's put together this awesome website. If you scroll down. Senior awards, it says in auditorium, so.
Live. So the reason I ask about that is because during COVID, we switched from the in-person to the online. So we broadcasted on YouTube that night. And what we had was a bunch of people would gather up and have a party in their living room with their kid, when their kid was gonna get called out for scholarship or whatever. People enjoyed that. So then the next year we went back to, or after a couple years back, we went back to the live. And then I heard about a 50-50 split from people as to whether they preferred the live version or the party with my family version. And I don't know where the right answer is, but it might be worth asking the graduates what they would prefer and then going with their opinion. Yeah. One way or the other, because they were both very popular. Oh, yeah, it was way more fun than something that you would have to have sitting next to somebody you don't know. and-
I think he's wanting it to be passed. I don't think it matters if anything.
It's the fun of it.
Somebody would have to announce.
Any other, Mr. Upland, we'll be back May 13th with additional questions. Any other questions? Don't worry, you'll get lots of information. There's lots to remember.
More detail than the graduation rehearsal, maybe number 12.
Nope, you don't have to go to graduation rehearsal. No,
You are cleaning dishes from senior
Yeah.
breakfast as that is occurring.
if you can get a spot, it's
You
a
have a
pretty
lot of
big deal.
You won't be clean.
All right,
And then you'll tell us where we're staging for the parade when we figure out the route.
yeah, we'll get that. They just altered the route, I want to say late last week, so we'll figure out where the board can sit. Go from there.
Your job there is to drink coffee that you got at the coffee company and clap. It's really cold.
I just don't want to be at the wrong place. Like, last time I've had to meet for coffee, I was at the wrong place, Scott, so.
That's right.
Yeah,
So was I. though.
yeah.
We were both in the wrong place.
Yep.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, Scott.
So the next item is arose out of the High Desert ESD Budget Committee. That was a bit of a kerfuffle. Because I was sitting there listening to a really dull presentation that we hear every year. The best part about the High Desert ESD budget is the dinner that they serve somewhere in the middle of it. And this year, however, was not dull and interesting because the lady who was presenting about driver's ed announced that we were cutting the program at Crook County and we would no longer have it during the day and it would be an evening presentation, which was the first I'd ever heard of that. And so I, in the Q&A, raised the question, what did you say about cutting at Crook County? Where's that coming from? And she doubled down on her presentation. So that didn't go over very well, as you might imagine. So the next day, Joel called and asked the ESD to please have a representative at our next board meeting. Well, they hastened over to tell us that was a completely mistaken presentation that never should have happened. They were never talking about Crook County and our program is going to continue as it has always continued. So that's nice. We don't have to have the presentation in vain. But there was more information that Joel and I got that I had not heard and I wanted to be sure and share it with all of you. So the way they are running that program these days has changed from the days when my kids took it. And we are charging students $800 to take that program. $800 is the tuition. I think my kids paid $250.
Yeah, I paid 200.
You're right.
Their
Blake.
fee is that much.
Yeah.
That's like if I pay for a third party outside of the school, it's that much.
Now, our participation rate, in fall, we had 14 kids take driver's ed. In winter, we had 10. And in spring, we had 22, but we had 22 because ODOT came in with a scholarship fund and gave kids half scholarship. And it drove the numbers participating up by, about 50%. Or I'm sorry, 100% increase. So over the course of the year, between those 3 semesters, even with the scholarship, we had 46 kids participating. Well, I don't know what we have in sophomores and juniors and 16-year-olds, but I would guess it's around 160 kids. So, like a quarter of our kids are taking driver's ed. Whether that's because they don't have time or that it's too expensive or
$800?
whatever, or, money, I don't know what the total issue is. But in talking to the ed guy, he said, I said, well, what would happen if we put some money towards scholarships? Because this ODOT money is not renewable. He said, that'd be amazing. We could really, really increase the program if we did that. And so I said, well, what about, how much did ODOT give you? And he said 4,500.
I wanna say, yeah, it was
Which got him,
4,000.
yeah, which got him to the 22, but I think it is worth our while to help our kids be able to do that program in order to get the reduction in the insurance rate that they get, make sure they're safe on the road. And quite frankly, from what I hear from students, we have a number of kids who are driving without licenses,
Oh, jeez.
which I am concerned about for our own liability. So I think we'd be money well ahead if we were to think about in the context of the budget we are now adopting, being able to find some money to put aside to help defray the cost. That could come out of the local service plan if we didn't want to pay for something else, because we've spent 100% of our money out of the local service plan right now. That's the ESD money.
So you're saying $5,000?
Well, I had a little more in.
Well, I was gonna say, looking at those numbers, what did a scholarship from ODOT look like?
I wanna say it was.
400, wasn't
It was, they got $4,000 total and they did 10 $400 scholarships, so it cut it in half down to $400.
Scott, why did they increase so much?
Yeah, what?
That's the
I
state.
never did.
It has to
understand that.
do with, part of our conversation was on the, you can only put 3 kids in a car at once with 1 staff member, right? So your scale isn't that big, 1 staff member. And then a scarcity of, I wanna say, trained drivers.
Train
came
drivers
up,
was an issue.
Okay.
to where that's why there's just not a lot of options.
When my youngest was gonna go through the program, we couldn't get in. Like it was
Right,
filled
that's
all the
the-
time.
that
And it was
is
only
gonna be my
$250.
That's the lack of
So
instructors.
we had to go through a third party. It was someplace that came over and we just happened to get on the list and it was in Bend and we had to go to Bend for it. And it wasn't $250. It was less than that. So I thought, well, we got one heck of a deal then if it was less than $250. And we tried for 2 years to get into that thing, get on the
Right.
wait list because of the way his birthday fell. And we could
Well,
never get in, so.
We also, Jay, you'll love this. We offered Jay to help recruit additional instructors from the community on behalf of ESD so that we could help solve that problem. I don't think we named at least 3 people we thought could do it and had done it in the past. They hadn't talked to any of them or hadn't heard of them. So our point was, we may know local resources you don't know. And we can at least, we're not gonna hire them, but we can at least target. And I will say, we used to, and at some point in the distant past, hire a driver's ed instructor who taught that class. I don't know when we quit doing that.
I thought
But-
they don't do that anymore.
Doesn't Natalie?
Natalie does, but she's through ESD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, as a district, do any of that. We used to be, it was at one point, it was just a class you automatically took when you turned 16 and the school district's guy.
So why
his
did we
thing.
get away
I
from?
don't know where that went away.
Yeah.
So Natalie
Yeah,
works
yeah.
for High Desert ESD to do that, because my kids took it through Natalie.
She teaches, I wanna say there's some of her day, right? Or is her class after school?
She has an extra duty period to do it.
That's it. So during her prep, she
Yeah.
teaches a section.
So when did we drop our actual class, Joel?
It was before I worked
I
here.
was, it
12
must have been 15 years. I think this is the
30
way,
years
yeah,
ago, I
it
don't
shifted
know.
to the
Probably
ESD.
when Sam Lieber died.
Yeah, years and years and years ago. So if this sounds like an area that we can explore and potentially expand, we want to obviously check with budget stuff.
Well, I know that our kids had the same issue that Jen did. It's a wait list.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we would need to find the extra resources before we budgeted the money to give. I think we need
Yeah.
to come up with another, I don't know if it's a car, instructor, what that would look like.
That was one of the positive.
Yeah,
points.
ESD did just buy us a brand new car.
We got the 2024 Toyota
But do you
Corolla.
can you only have
Nice.
one per so many students? Is there a cap on that?
So you can
I'm
have
not-
more cars
I'm
if you
sure.
go buy them, I guess.
Yeah,
That's what I'm wondering. Like, is that why we're also capped or is it really the money?
I probably, there's. Money always makes it easy.
ESD has set this up as you have to make it pay for itself. We're not gonna provide any sort of support to it. And as a result, it's very constrained based on their ability to raise money for it. a district that wants to come in and subsidize it can do so with its own funds or with local service plan dollars. But nobody has even presented us with that as an idea, and I don't think any of us knew that this was happening in the background. And I wouldn't have known had we not had that erroneous report that night, so maybe that was a good thing. But I did think it was worth bringing to the rest of you, because my guess was you would feel much like I did, that we want to have access to that program, and we want to encourage our kids to drive on the road with defensive driving training and safely and licenses.
I do have to second Scott's, I have heard of several students who drive without a driver's license, several.
Yep.
Understand.
That's great.
I would be interested to know those moving parts and how we can solve them. Is it just, like Scott said, finding a budget of offering scholarships? Do we need another teacher? Do we need another car? Do we, like, what all do we need to?
This was, Scott and I meeting last week was my first dive into the depths of driver's ed. So I think.
Just gonna put on a new
we'll
hat.
explore more and maybe come back. I know the May board meeting's pretty full. June is crazy with graduation, so maybe a July board meeting, we could kind of come back with the current status, maybe a recommendation.
Let's let ESD put a proposal together for us.
I like that.
They come up and stay on to do it.
I would also be interested to know, Joel, if we still have a wait list for that class.
I'm sure we do.
I would be curious to know what, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we can get 22 in spring, we might not have had a wait list, you know,
Well,
so.
and not everybody uses ESD, right? There are also private contractors who do
See,
this work.
so that's what that's where we were directed
Yeah.
to, but it's the same price. It's
Yeah.
Still,
But $600 to $800, you can get kind of a lesser, if they have good grades, you can get a discount.
Yeah.
For that, there are some discounts you could get, but it's roughly that amount if you're not gonna teach your kids yourself.
We'll add to our list and bring some more information back to the board, and a potential ESD proposal.
So then we have our budget meeting tomorrow. So I don't wanna throw Anna for a loop if we come back in July and then say, hey, we want X amount of dollars for.
Budgets change all throughout the year, so if it's, you know, if we're talking $5,000, $10,000, I don't know what you're saying, you know, I don't know if you're saying $100,000.
I'm saying 25.
25, okay.
So
We'll,
that's movable.
and, you know, let's see what the ESD can propose, as well. So, we'll come back with some options.
I don't wanna make Anna's life hard, but it does keep her brain young and fresh when we pose challenges to her during the budget process.
All of that smile.
Then could you also find out maybe from Mr. Huffman what our enrollment or interest in that program is? I mean, is 46 realistic, or did we potentially maybe have 60, but you know, money kept us away,
Yeah.
or then we kind of know,
If you think of your average class, about 200 or so, so that's.
right? That's why I'm wondering, could-
More than 46 for sure.
Right.
That ought to be in there.
If you think it should be sophomores, juniors, I
I think
mean,
it's ridiculous. They
we're
jumped
probably at
in some dollars.
8 to 10% of our students are getting
yeah, I think
ESL.
we had 16 good grades and some other stuff, so we did ourselves. So we have 3
That's a
drivers.
lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, okay, well, thanks for the heads up, Scott.
Got it the hard
I
way.
guess it was good that you went through that.
What? No, I was online. I didn't. Oh, no.
Didn't even get dinner, huh, Scott? Okay, so we are on to you, Jay. So again, we're just gonna discuss these. They'll be on our May.
Yeah.
We just have a plethora of policies to start working through, so we appreciate you taking your time tonight to start our
You bet.
list of what, 50, Tammy? Got a pretty good list, so.
OSBA did put out a lot of policy revisions, and they are suggestions from OSBA. So what you have in the packet today are their suggestions. So these are what OSBA sent to us and said, hey, here's our suggestions for policy updates. We've done some minor pieces in there where we've done some changes. You'll see that on the cover sheet. To some of them, 3 of them are pretty minor in changes. The other two are really big, and I think we'll even take more discussion on the last two, particularly around background checks and fingerprinting, as opposed to the first three, which are a little bit more minor in revisions. The first one in there is policy AC. It's the non-discrimination policy, and it comes from a change of House Bill 2281 that was effective just January 21st of this year. And what they did is in that they designated that every district has to have a civil rights coordinator. Talking to other districts around, almost every single district has placed that with the Title IX coordinator because there's so much overlap between the non-discrimination and civil rights and Title IX. But because of so much of this is also overseeing complaints, most Title IX coordinators are also HR directors. So most of this is fallen within HR across the state is where they're designating. We can choose to go with an ESD representative, or we could choose to go internally. What we're recommending in this case is because of the overlapping duties that exist between all of them, we're recommending placing the civil rights coordinator role in the same place that we have Title IX, which is with our human resources director. So the change on the AC on the non-discrimination you'll see in here is a blue right in the middle of the page where it says the board designates a director of human resources as the district's civil right coordinator. So that's our recommendation, and that's the only change on policy AC, and that's why that change is there.
So, Jay, I just have a question. What does that look like for workload for what you're already doing?
Yeah, so most of those, if there's a civil rights complaint, especially on a level like that, it's kind of come through human resources already.
Oh, okay.
So there's an overlapping piece. The exact legislation that was enacted in the House bill says monitor, coordinate, and oversee school district compliance with state and federal laws prohibiting discrimination in public education.
Okay.
Oversee investigations of complaints alleging discrimination in public education and ensure that investigations are resolved. Provide guidance to school and school district personnel on civil rights issues in the school district, respond to questions and concerns about civil rights in the school district, and coordinate efforts to prevent civil rights violations from occurring in the school district. Satisfy any training requirements prescribed by the State Board of Education by rule, and comply with any rules adopted by the State Board of Education for the purpose of implementing that paragraph. So that's the actual language from the House Bill 2281. Most of that will fall under a Title IX or Human Resources section anyway, which is where that recommendation comes in from. The state is responsible to train the civil rights coordinators. They're still kind of going through that process of doing that work. And that's an annual training that they have to do.
Starting this year.
Yes.
So the footnote,
Mhm.
footnote number 2 says that the duties of the civil rights coordinator is outlined at ORS 332-5052.
Mhm.
I'm reading ORS 332-5052, and it has nothing to do with that.
Interesting.
So can you check that
Yep.
citation? More about superintendents setting compensation than it is about anything else.
And then it looks like they removed both the old bills from the bottom, but they didn't add the new bill. They
You would
have,
never list a bill.
oh,
Because
it says House Bill 2935, 2021, House Bill 3041, 2021, and the red line.
But there's only down there for reference.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but they don't reference the new bill,
There's your bill, right?
so they don't normally, you know?
you wouldn't normally, because what a bill does is it changes the ORS. So you would reference the ORS, which is probably in one of those blue sections. I don't know why they had those two.
So they're
down
just
there.
getting rid of House bills now from the policy?
Well, I don't know why they had that there, probably just. We don't normally see that, do we? House business.
I thought I remember.
We've seen them before, so I just assumed that was a thing, but, like the
Oh, in
food
the
service
cross-
one.
Well, sometimes you do it because they get published, when they're passed by bills and they get published as Oregon laws, they're not codified into statute yet. And then within 2 years, they get codified in statute, but we have to implement them immediately. So they refer to the House bill until it gets to statutory
Yeah.
coverage.
And sometimes the OAR isn't updated for even
Right.
longer.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions on policy AC? Next one, you'll see policy GBN/JBA and JBA/GBN. They are really identical policies. And the difference of where it is J's are student-driven policies and G's are staff-driven policies. So that's why you have basically identical, but one is sitting in the student section and one is sitting in the staff section. So that's what you're seeing in here. In the pieces that you'll see for changes within, one of the things that we decided, one of their changes in here was under number 3, it's on that second page, where they cross out all those areas and they just say without consent, and that's the new definition they're going with. We decided looking in here that the previous policy had a specific name of an employee to report to. I don't know that we want to revise policy every time there's a staff change. Instead, designate it to a position instead of to a person. That way, we're not revising the policy anytime we have a change in staffing. So that's why we're crossing Sean's name out of there.
What they say without consent, it's a minor. Having a relationship or something with somebody who is not a minor, but they consent to it.
By Oregon law, a minor can't consent by law. So it would fall under here.
14, did they make it a minor 14? So.
I don't know if that's the particular piece are you saying like 14 years of age or
Yeah.
difference of age? Mhm.
I don't know what.
Like my
Oregon's for.
12-year-old can consent to his own health,
Mhm.
sign his own form
Yeah.
and get his own shots. I think that's what she's meaning.
Yes.
Is consent, is there an age? Is it
18.
Okay.
Oh,
18.
when they say consent, it would be of an 18-year-old.
If you're talking about minors in that
Yes.
circumstance.
I just think that sentence reads really bluntly. If you read the whole thing, including the upper part, it says sexual harassment of students, staff members, and third parties shall include assault when sexual contact occurs without consent. That's the actual line in the policy there under the Oregon definition. I mean, it's more like sexual harassment shall include sexual contact that occurs without consent. I don't know where the assault part is coming in there. It's very clunky. I'm reading the policy,
But where at?
right there under Oregon definition.
Well, you're further down there.
Oh, you're on the back. Okay, I'm sorry. You're on the back.
Find it.
Right here.
I'm saying,
I don't know if he's reading.
it's just weird. I don't know if you can read it or word it better, but maybe that's all legal and coming straight out of the statute, but it is clunky
Yeah.
and not very. We are schools. We should write in a way that it's descriptive.
And he's a
Mr. Foster. Yeah.
And I would also say, we probably want to add, I would say, don't we have a district email that's not specific to you, Tammy, or the board? Or is it just yours?
Eric and I have actually talked a little bit about this, of creating an HR email that is just a general box.
Yeah.
So if there was a discrimination or something like that,
We
then
have-
that could go into the policy. And then
Yeah.
that is accessed then by human resources to
Okay.
be able to see it.
Get the first stuff
Um,
out.
So we have discussed that and how to make that
Okay.
work.
Doing that in multiple ways where
Okay.
we're using more non-human accounts so that we don't have to go back and revise documentation.
Yeah, because we've had a few of those where have been old executive assistants or HR directors, and it's the same thing, just needs to be updated because of that. And I thought we already had the generic email in a sense, so we don't yet.
There are many that we do.
That's what I think.
And then I think as we determine that a new one is needed, like this HR one, it just gets implemented like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric and I talked about this actually last week when I called him because of the pieces to start brainstorming. So I said, I want to propose taking names out of the policy. So that's when we started talking about how do we do this? And that's the other piece you'll see on the bottom of the page 6 on that. We did cross out, Sean's name was in there again. We crossed it out and put Director of Human Resources instead of having the name in there. And the next one in there, the JBA, you're going to see it's identical to the GBN that we just talked about. They are just the / policies, the student and the staff one. Any other questions on those two? Those were the ones with the minor changes. The next one coming in, OSBA really did a massive overhaul on the next policy, which is GCDA /GDDA, which is criminal records. checks and fingerprinting, and then they are proposing doing away with the administrative rule that goes with it and just having a policy with everything encompassing. This is a major change in the way it's structured. Some things are the same, some things they aren't. So this one, I think we have to have a lot more discussion around because of the implications to some of the pieces within this policy. So as you start to look at it on that first page, you'll notice there's on a 8.5 by 11 page, there's one line of black, which means that's what stays. One line of blue and a bunch of red crossed out because they totally rewrote this policy. Some of the things in here, though, are just rewritten in a different way that existed in the previous policy. They're in different spots, they're written in different ways, but some of the structural changes are different, but some of the content is the same. So we'll kind of walk through as you have questions, and I've got the old one in front of me too, to be able to say, yes, that was in the old one. No, this wasn't in the old one. This is brand new. Even if it's blue, it might have been in the old one. It's just been packaged different by OSBA right now. So like I said, that one's just a little bit more conversation for us to walk through.
On that first blue line, it says certain individuals, who determines what
Yeah.
individuals. Does that get described somewhere further down?
There are some pieces within the statute that, yes, does describe some of those. There's one spot in particular that talks about the superintendent, like for contractors, having basically the discretion to say who in contractors undergoes an in-state and who undergoes fingerprinting. So there's an example there. TSPC is the licensing body for teachers and some administrators. In order to get your license, you have to submit to a fingerprint to them. And then your fingerprints are basically now on file with TSPC. Every time a teacher or administrator renews their license, if they're preliminary, it's every 3 years. If they're professional, it's every 5 years. That's basically the amount of service and what professional development you've done distinguishes that. If you're on a restricted or emergency, it's every year. Anytime that license is renewed, your background check is redone based upon your fingerprints in the system. And that's done in a cross background check with OSP. And then they have access to all their different police records and searches that they go through on it. But staff, licensed staff, pay for that fingerprinting the first time they ever go through. And generally they do that when they're student teaching or in their first year of employment with TSPC.
Is that done at the sheriff's office?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally it is, or they can do it through FieldPrint, which is a company that we use quite a bit here. We just direct them there. And they have an office here in Prineville. So either one of those two. So teachers do that. Classified do more of the field print of the sheriffs when they come in as they do it. And then contractors we've done since Senate Bill 155 came through in 2019. It brought some more specific requirements on fingerprinting background checks. And more specifics went through with contractors in particular at that time. We started requiring after that bill in 1920 that all contractors go through fingerprint to work within the school district as well. During that time, it's been a pretty well-oiled machine where we know who's passed and who hasn't prior to them even stepping in. And in circumstances of like an emergency, if Leland's favorite boiler went down and we need someone here right away, then we can escort them and still be in compliance with background, which is what we've done in a couple cases. But generally speaking, most companies we contract with, we have background checked and fingerprinted the employees. And there's probably been a half a dozen times where we've had to call that company before they ever step foot on site and say, sorry, you can't send that employee here. And so we have caught probably about a half a dozen before ever working for us by doing the field, by the fingerprint system. But to this point, as Lionel and I talked about it, we don't know of any circumstance that it's the latest service for us when we've had to contract outside, because we just make sure that we have someone there with them. The in-state that we've used is called the Background Investigation Bureau. And that one is a very easy process. That's our volunteer system, mostly across the board. If you go to our website at the top, there's a volunteer link. And when you click on that volunteer link, there's a spot there for clicking in for a background check. You go in, you enter your name, your birth date, and it sends it off and we get a background report back from
But that's
that.
not a fingerprint based.
It is not.
So this new language says the district should require a fingerprint based criminal record check for
For
volunteers
volunteers.
allowed.
And in that section, if I'm remembering correctly on that one, it was particularly around, see if I'm thinking the same spot you are. I'm looking under requirements for volunteers.
Yeah, it's the
District,
header.
And in particular, it says volunteers transporting students other than their own in
Right.
private vehicles.
Well, that, yeah.
But otherwise, at least the way I'm interpreting this, it would only be in those spots where they were in that circumstance, but not in a, I'm gonna do smart reading, or I'm gonna do, I'm gonna chaperone a trip that's not overnight,
Well, what if you are a parent going on the field trip to the Oregon coast?
and you're staying overnight
Yeah.
as a chaperone, then this policy would ask them to do the fingerprint.
And do we want that for parents who are
Yeah.
accompanying their kid?
Were we fingerprinting when we went
No,
on?
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so.
It
Well,
seems
then
like
they
the
put
background
all your
check you plug in would
fingerprints
be
in a big
happy.
database.
This is new in OSBA,
Right.
their policy
And it's
this
not
year.
re- I don't think it's required in the language
No.
that's in front of us.
Mhm.
I mean, these are
Yeah.
not great written rules, but
Correct.
I didn't see that level of specificity.
Not on an overnight. That's an OSBA.
So, I mean, to me, I would carve out a bit of an exception for parents, maybe non-parents.
Mhm.
But if you're a parent, it should be sufficient to run the computer background check, or you're gonna get nobody to volunteer, because somebody's gonna go through that rigmarole. That's gonna take forever.
That would be my next
Mhm.
question. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but what would be like a turnaround if a parent wanted to go?
Mhm.
And I mean, is it a month, 6 weeks? Like,
The fingerprinting can take weeks, couple weeks, probably to do. What the company we use turns around usually in 24 to 48 hours. The only time we normally see it longer is if you've lived in a bunch of different counties, because it goes to every county that you've lived in to verify your background in each county. And so we had one particular person that had lived in, I think it was like 20 some counties over the time. And their particular situation, we were waiting on one county to clear them. 19 had come through clear, and we were waiting on one to clear them, and that one ended up taking like a week or two. And that was an exceptionally long circumstance to go through, but most 24 to 48. 3 people can get in and do those at any different time to make sure we don't have a backlog, and that's the HR group. Nikki's our primary running it, and then Tina and I are both backups if Nikki was to be out. So we can usually get in there and approve pretty quick.
does the district cover the costs of this?
For parents, yes, we do.
How much is it?
I'd really love to see that language revised to say something like overnight chaperone who is not a parent. And then something like parents will be subject to the computer-based background check, whatever.
That's still in
language
here,
there.
I think, the computer piece.
Just ease up on that one just a little.
Yeah.
And then on the transportation one, if you're a parent, you've come to a game, which is the district sponsored activity.
Yep.
You're done, your kid's done throwing the hammer or
Right.
whatever, and they're ready to go. And you're gonna take another kid who's there, because they're done too, take them home. Can I do that unless I have a background, if I don't have a background check under number 4?
Usually just sign up with a coach.
So usually
know,
you have
could
to
just
bring,
sign on.
well, we have a form you have to fill out through the district that allows you to take somebody, like I have to give permission for you to take my kid. No, it's an actual, we made a form. Every parent meeting, here's your, I've never had to fill out a form until this year.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, if you got to the game and didn't have your form turned in before, you were riding the bus.
Well, you can access it online and.
Who fell in love with this form?
I don't know who created it, but this was the first year in all the sports.
I have some history there. I believe the coaches and the athletic director ask for a form because they get,
Yeah.
because there's significant liability on this, right? And I think
Because we've been sued how many times?
you'd get, you only want to get, you want to keep a 0, because I think the coach would be like, hey, on this napkin, Bobby's going home with Steve, and it got so messy that we wanted to make sure there was some clean procedures around that, so.
Yeah, I disagree with the forms because you might have a kid that boards a bus like going to state and then you get a message through Remind from the coach that says there isn't a bus back. So make sure you come get your kid and
Yeah.
it's in Portland and that's a little hard to do when you've got to get a form to Rob Bonner before your kid took off and you didn't even know there wasn't a bus back.
So I think
So
this is the first year with the form, and it sounds like we might have some kinks to work out, so let's, yeah, we can look at that.
but there wouldn't be a need for this policy if we continue with, I thought this form came off of one of our policies with the way it was told at the parent meetings at the high school. So you could check with Rob, he gives the speech every sport.
This is your opportunity to fix it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you don't need any of this if that form is really coming off the policy we already have. You can take it all out.
Yeah, let me ask and dig into,
Yeah.
I remember the conversation a year and a half ago, so.
Well, this
Okay.
has been this year at all high school level sports that my kids have participated in.
And then where's the equity in for classified staff who apparently have to pay for their fingerprints when certified don't?
Certified do pay the initial TSPC fingerprint that they have to do, and then they just never have to go through another one after that. Because TSPC holds them on file and reruns them on every license renewal, but they do pay their initial
Okay.
in there when they go through their licensing.
And classified only once,
Yes,
ever.
And is that something we can impose without going back to bargaining?
it was actually in our previous policy.
Or-
Yes, that's been our practice and in our current policy that's on. And I did pull that one just in case on it from the policy too, but there's a specific language that exists in the current one.
So does TSPC keep everyone's after the first time,
Yes,
no matter their position? I'm understanding, okay.
it does.
But the same renewal process, depending on their status.
Yeah, so when a teacher has to log into TSPC and pay a renewal fee. And then when they pay that renewal fee, which can be upwards of $200+ depending on how many endorsements and licenses they have. Once they do that, then TSPC reruns a background check and then issues the license again, assuming that they've turned all their credentials in that they need to
So how
do.
does that work for subs? Are they TSPC
They are.
licensed?
Yep. So subs are the same way. Whether they're through us or whether through the High Desert ESD, either way, they have to have some type of a sub license. Whether it be a district sub license, those are the ones that we sponsor, or a restricted or a sub license, which exists at the High Desert ESD. So any one of them have to be in the TSPC system to sub.
And they have to get their fingerprint in order to be in that.
Correct.
So then they have to pay that.
Give people a chance to look, because you can see there's a ton of blue in there.
And that could just be that it's just reworded somehow.
Correct. For instance, one of the pieces that's reworded that's blue in here is spots about if they falsify information on their volunteer or in their background checks, that they would be terminated. That exists in the previous policy. They have just revised and placed that in a different spot in policy or changed the wording slightly. One thing I will say about this one, and Joel mentioned this on an earlier piece, when we were talking about the org chart too, is that because this is such of a massive, overhaul and rewrite, shoot me emails, send them away, think about it, look at it, think about it. Hey, was that in the original? Feel free to send those questions on, because there's a lot on this one to digest, just because there's so much blue on there.
And then Jay, when these checks go out and the fingerprints go out, you said it goes through OSP or the sheriffs or? who?
Oregon State Police.
Yeah,
And then I believe TSPC also works with FBI fingerprinting on that also, so it really hits both of those. And then there's a database that I don't remember the name of it, that exists if someone's under investigation, but they haven't been charged. It hits that area too. On our TSPC login, we have one in Human Resources that we can use. We can see if they're under investigation for serious crimes too, as a flag for us, green, yellow, red. Green, there's 0 investigations or complaints. Yellow, they're under investigation, and red, something was founded during the investigation. So we check that on any hire we do on a background check for anybody that's licensed. We go in and check that. We also check a discipline log that exists on TSPC for sanctions to see if anything would have been there in the past too. So but we can see if they're under investigation when we log in.
so when it says a volunteer candidate who knowingly made a false statement, you would know that, or it would come back on a report and not match what they filled out? Is
That
what you
could,
mean?
that could be, volunteers a little harder just because they'll go on and fill out the online piece and we'll get that report, that background check.
Okay.
So the only way we would know if they falsified is through investigating it ourselves on that one, because we'll just have it from them on a background check. If someone fails a fingerprint background check, when it says the superintendent of public instruction, that's like the head of ODE. We get a letter from them that says this person cannot be employed. And then it also states if they are employed, they must be terminated. So that's a piece that we'll get a letter on from the state if they fail a background check at the fingerprint level.
I'm just wondering if we remove the volunteer side for the fingerprinting,
Mhm.
how would we know if they falsified their background check for some reason if we don't have the fingerprinting for volunteers?
We get it based upon the information they give into the system, which still gives us a comprehensive background check. It's just not the fingerprint. We still see background checks will even show us if they violated the basic rule for speeding.
Oh,
So we see anything that's there. We even see things that are dismissed unless they have it expunged.
Okay, and you won't see expunged stuff on.
Correct.
I just learned that in the academy class. Criminal can have their records expunged and they will never be the wiser.
Yeah.
Which I think is a terrible thing.
But yeah, we will see anything from, like I said, like a violation of basic rule for speeding. We'll see, didn't wear their seatbelt. So we'll see all sorts of pieces there, which is important if they're asking to be a chaperone and drive.
Right,
You
that's
know,
why I was wondering what you've got.
So, so we do get a decent list of everything on there. And then also pieces, and then we look at that and then determine, do they meet qualifications or not?
Okay.
They're not a contribution,
The new site, the
yeah,
new set that up is a little bit.
yeah.
I've got those written down to loosen those up.
But it sounds like you're gonna get enough information off a background check to know whether it's on.
Yeah, and it's pretty timely.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay.
And those are what we'd consider in the policy, the in-state. When you see in-state in there, consider that to be the one that we do internally. Cheyenne, you asked a question earlier, how much is that? I want to say it's $12 or $15 per background check, roughly in that range is what it costs us to run that.
And we cover that.
We do cover that, yes. Yep, parents, guardians, family members that choose to volunteer, we cover that cost
Okay.
for that background check.
Anybody else? Anything else? Then we can move on to the next.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
That's all of them.
I-
Well, so
oh,
what they
it's-
did, so that deletion of the AR, what they did is they took the stuff from the AR and placed it into the other policy, which is why there's so much blue. Because some of that is the AR deletion,
I didn't
taking
hear
it out of the AR and
Okay.
placing it
That
into the other,
makes sense.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
AR section is included.
into the other one, yes.
So, Madam Chairman, just a generic question for Jay.
Yeah.
There was a lot of work that happened in the legislative session,
Yeah.
and regulating education.
Yeah.
There were a ton of bills passed, 100 or something.
Mhm.
How much more of this work is ahead of us as OSBA rolls out all the 2024 session?
I'm thinking about, I think Tammy and I talked about the amount, I want to say, off the top of my head, Tammy, what was it, like 30 or so updates? I'm trying to guess what we got as samples.
Yeah, I think if I just count just the title of the policies, it was 50.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, it came in April and we were.
So
like-
this is a tiny little handful.
Yeah, so we're trying to, we're just trying 3 or 4. So Joel and I and Tammy and Dr. Yucca, we put them in the order of severity that OSBA brought them down, so must do, highly recommended, delete, we categorize them that way, and that's Tammy's highlighting in color here. This is the packet we got. So Joel and I have discussed, we either do like this, we add a work session and just do first readings with a group that an individual covers. So like these are Jay's avenue, so he'll present 5. We look over them, email back what we have. The first reading is complete, and then we take it to a board meeting and kind of shift them in this group. Sometimes we can't get 5 together. Some of these are massive.
Yes, right.
So we haven't quite figured out if we can section, like 3 and then 5. We might just do one work session where it's 10 alike. We haven't quite divvied that out completely yet. Joel and Tammy
It's on our,
Our
it's on our to-do.
are still sorting. Some of them are quite extensive, in what they're asking, and and some of it is, like you said, is where's this coming from? And it's OSBA saying
Right.
this is being added. So, it's also deciphering those things. So, right now, we're trying to do this where it's a smaller group with a person that generally that's kind of their work area. And we then have time to look them over, email concerns, questions. So it can be presented back, and we're just gonna have to keep shuffling. And hopefully get through them before October, when the next joint set comes out for the legislature. Yeah. Cool.
So
So,
typically OSBA releases 5 to 15.
Yeah.
And this year, because we were ready to go, we're like, hey, we've got this
Yeah.
work session. And they came out with 50 policy changes. it's
and they
just
do
like,
it April and October.
ah.
So we're assuming October is probably gonna be just as large, like Scott said, the bills that went through legislation was well over 100, so we're assuming we're gonna have.
It's not like we waited either.
No,
We
that's the
jumped right
thing.
in.
So,
We're down to 45.
so, yes,
Yeah, and some of these will come back around. I'll tell you right now, GBN and JBA will be back around in October or next April. Because the feds have changed the Title IX structure. And that implements new in August. So when they do that and that implements, Title IX is a part of the sexual harassment policy of GBN and JBA. So this one will come back around in the next calendar year. But they just adopted those changes about a week or two ago. And so, but they don't implement until the summer. So this one we'll revisit this one again when those regs change.
we did look at some of those dates. We do have some that are supposed to be implemented by summer. We did try to look at those. So, we have a long list. So.
And how many people, like summer school starts or something?
We'll know like when, I guess the bill starts, how would you word that? Is that the right
Yeah.
terminal? Goes into effect?
Gotcha.
So,
Good to know.
so we might have a better idea in May session with kind of how to break down, but it's a lot. So,
Tammy does an awesome job.
Tammy has started a very great list.
The spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's not an organizational chart. It's a spreadsheet.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? You got everything you need, Tammy, Anna? Jay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Feel free to hit that.
Wow,
Move it over your way.
the meeting's adjourned. Scott's really hoping one day I'm just gonna, it's gonna come up off the table and everything.
Take that.